I love you guys.
Dance off, bro. I have the high ground.
Expecto Patronum!
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor. Tribe of Nerds.
I'm George, I'm 31 years old, and I'm the president of the Labor Party in Bankstown. Hello, sir. Thank you for coming today. Please vote One Labor at today's election. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now, I'm basically a professional spin doctor for a living. I'm about controlling situations and controlling outcomes. All right, let's show. Survivor is a lot like local politics. There's two sides, there's factions within a tribe. I've been outwitting, outplaying and outlasting a conga line of people that are trying to get rid of me in the Labor Party. I've got the book smarts and I've got the street smarts. I'm the total package. There's no doubt in my mind that I am going to win. The outcome is already decided. It's there in the stars up of Outback Queensland. George Mladenov, the winner of Australian Survivor.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tribe of Nerds. Matt, Michael, and I are here for Season 6 of our Australian Survivor coverage with Brains versus Brawn, talking about King George and everything that goes with it. So to get into it right before we get to our episode breakdowns, what are your guys' impressions of Season 6, Brains versus Brawn?
Take away, Michael, because you are the challenge beast of this podcast, so...
0 immunity wins across my seasons. Yeah, I'm very much the George when it comes to physical parts of the game. I really don't care. But I enjoyed this season a lot more than I remember enjoying it. In the past, I always just thought of it as like the George season and in a season that was kind of propped up by 1 or 2 key characters. But rewatching it, I actually thought it was a lot more solid than I remember. And yeah, there's a couple of needless twists, but there always is in Australian Survivor, and sadly it just is what it is. I have a theory towards the end of how they can improve all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting that you liked it more, because I liked this less watching it back.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, because those twists really pissed me off the more I kept watching it. I'll compare it to a movie when we rank it, but it will make sense, because I did not like this.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm more on the Michael side because I liked it a little more, because I was thinking going in from the first time I watched it, the twists really suck. Like, a lot of them do really suck. But the gameplay still works, particularly this post-merge for the most part, aside from the earn twist that we'll talk about. But like everything else just does work for me. Like this post-merge really works. Some of the stuff in the pre-merge is obviously really good too. So and so I'm really interested to get into this. And I do say with the cast, there are definitely half the cast does seem like they're kind of duds. And then half the cast does really work, I think, with this season. So anything else to say on the cast, or are we ready to hit the episode breakdowns?
Go ahead, man. Take it away.
All
Let's
right.
start the reign of the king.
Yes. So episode 1, we get right into it. It is interesting because the dichotomy between the tribe entrances, and they do this a lot with Australian survivors. So you get the Brains are like their vehicles are like more high tech.
Yeah, they're like dune buggy. Yeah, because I have that in my notes. And then the Brawn are like these power diesel trucks.
Yes, yep. So that was an interesting thing to notice this time as well. And then, so that happens, we get intro packages, we get, Simon gets some times he talks in the intro package in the background, like Emmett and a bunch of them. And then, of course, you get the actual intro packages, you get George speaking, and immediately you're like, this is going to be a character. Because immediately you get Macedonian Jesus get brought into it, and you get George being like, I'm a politician, I can put lipstick on a pig, and just like all these great quotes, and like I'm gonna swing an axe in the front, everybody's gonna see it coming. So thoughts on these intro packages and like the characters that we're gonna get from this?
When you first watched this, did either of you think that George was going to be a Survivor legend? To me, I was like, he was a surefire, blows up and he's gone before merge.
I will say I knew he was a legend because I saw Heroes versus Villains before this, so I
Oh,
kind of,
really?
yeah, I kind of, yeah. I'll talk about it during Heroes versus Villains, but episode 7 is what got me back into watching Australian Survivor because
Ah, right.
Paramount Plus, because Jeff Probst and Paramount Plus took them off in the US.
Yeah.
I will say maybe that's like, I think part of the journey of this season is when I watched it and first loved it was not expecting George to just keep going the way he did. So
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe like already knowing that George was safe and he was going to get through to the end, maybe like tampers your view of the season a little bit. Because it's like when I watched it live, I just every time he made it through again, I was like, how is this guy surviving? Every episode, I was like, surely this is the time they get George.
Yeah, it's crazy, like knowing what George is going to become. He has a very rough start, as we'll get into. It's crazy because like I definitely thought he was going to be this fun character that's not really a good player, and like then as soon as he gets going, he doesn't stop, and he's just great. So, um, but yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the other characters as we progress into the episode breakdowns. So then we get to our first challenge, and this is
But
Way
hold on,
versus.
before we get there, I just wanted to bring this up because in this season in Blood versus Water, they have the big giant letters like come on
Yes.
the screen. So I just want to see what you guys think about that because I actually like it because it kind of sets it apart, like those two seasons apart from the rest.
Yeah, I mean this is what a new production team from the first 5 seasons, and then they get a new executive producer for Heroes versus Villains and Titans versus Rebels. So like I do like this part of it. I think it's cool to have like a title card that leads into the tribe that you're going into or like the day that you're on. Like I think that's really, really cool. They also have the temperature for these 2 seasons, which is interesting. I don't know that I need to know how hot or cold it is out there, but
Well, I thought it was fun. I had to pause it a bunch because I don't know Celsius, so I'd be like, so I had to convert it to Fahrenheit.
Uh, Our way makes way more sense.
It does, yeah.
But then they also UK Survivors stole that production aspect for like the big block letter for your tribe names and days and stuff. Yeah, I think it's a good addition, and yeah, I have no problems with that.
yeah, yeah. So then we get to that first challenge, and you get, of course, the introductions of like, why are you on Brains or Brawn? And then you get to Way versus Simon in the as callers, and so Way is kind of like freaking out immediately, and I mean nobody's really listening to her, unfortunately, and then Simon's just able to lead the Brawn to this challenge, which I think is one of the only puzzles that they win, at least early on. I mean, it involves a strength component to it, obviously, with like the wood chopping and whatnot, but like the pushing, but like the puzzle portion, the Brawn are not very good at the puzzles, which is just funny to see. Like the Brains and Brawn are like good at their individual things.
I don't know why they spent so long, the Brains tribe, persevering with the slide puzzle when like they do have strong people on their tribe. Like, why not throw Andrew at that log chopping part of it just straight away? Like they'd go into that puzzle without a major deficit in time. So yeah, they just seem to really be stuck on the puzzle when they didn't have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and then Dr. Mitch goes and like immediately gives up on the puzzle and goes into the wood chopping, which is just funny. And maybe that sets up that Dr. Mitch is just kind of trying to do his own thing and not really getting the tribe to work together. So, but we'll get into that shortly. Any other thoughts on this first challenge?
I just liked Gerald chopping the wood because
Yes.
that was very impressive.
Yeah, he's a champion wood chopper, as he'll reveal to his tribe like immediately, and we'll get like that intro package with him later on. But Gerald is interesting because like he gets kind of a quiet edit, but like the character moments Gerald does get are really fun. So like I actually really do like Gerald as a character on this season. And he seems like a great guy. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Gerald's kind of like how like John kind of figure, where he's just kind of a likable guy that's not
yeah.
super involved in the strategy of things. So that, yeah, Gerald kind of fills that role this season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a fan of Gerald watching it, and I was more of a fan after Shannon Gus revealed that Jared thought he would be like a returning player because he was giving all these great confessionals, but his edit just got destroyed because George basically overtook like the entire show. So I like Gerald more now, just for that too.
Yeah, I
So
would
are we
like,
saying that Gerald is the Natalie White of Brains versus Brawn?
If you have gone farther,
yeah.
white milk. I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
He would have if he got farther, like I mean we'll get to him getting sniped out of the game really, but like I would have liked to Gerald return. I think he would have been a fine character to come back, but unfortunately I don't think that's happening anymore. Um but so then we get to their camps and everything, and so really immediately George is talking about the dictator Dr. Mitch. And I mean, Mitch seems like he is a nice guy, but like I can see, I guess, a little bit of the perspective again because of that first challenge of like him wanting things his way and not really listening to anybody else. So that's probably, I think they could have leaned into showing that a bit more because it just seems like Mitch is at least coming off as like a nice guy as well. So like you're kind of seeing George's perspective as like George is kind of crazy for just like calling out Mitch for whatever reason.
I think we're giving George too much grace here. I don't know if Mitch ever really was what George claimed him to be. I feel like that's more likely to be George just finding a target and kind of, because no one else ever seems to really agree with that. Like he definitely does take a bit of a leader role, but I don't think he's like overly pushy, and he seems like he just wants to do what's best for the tribe. And especially, and I do understand, especially in the Brains tribe where you're not surrounded by like physical muscle, they need to get the shelter and stuff done, and they have less people that are kind of able-bodied to be able to do that. So I just felt like he was maybe just trying to do what's best for his tribe, but he was out there with a madman.
Well, and it's just interesting because like I really thought that they were setting up this rivalry to last way longer than it does, and it doesn't actually play too much of a factor in the season. So
and then George kind of proves my point because he's furious when he gets voted out.
yeah, which is wild. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But that is a wild thing that happens, that George is actually so furious about Mitch when he's gone. So and then Brawn, we get a lot of Simon talking, and we get some intro packages from Shannon as well, which is gonna eventually we're gonna lead to the Shannon versus Simon rivalry on the other side, which we didn't get to talk to Simon about because it was primarily about heroes versus villains. But like this is an interesting rivalry. I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get into episode 2. But like Shannon is another character where I really think she could have returned as well had she not had such an early exit, as like I really didn't expect her to go as early as she does.
Yeah, she's the pre-merge version of Sarah from 2017.
Yeah, I can totally.
And
totally
it's kind of crazy that like Simon and Shannon are such key figures in this early portion of the game, and neither one makes merge. It's like that their story ends like way sooner than I think you expect from the edit, like you said. And I think if Heroes versus Villains had been a full returning cast instead of just a half, I'm sure Shannon would have made that cut.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Shannon back for that as well, but I guess that's a discussion for when we get to Heroes versus Villains. But all right, so then we get to that immunity challenge. Is there anything else before we get to this immunity challenge?
Just that George is already talking about himself in the third person. Like I remember him doing that, but I thought it would be a little bit longer. But nope, he just starts straight off.
Yeah, he's very fully formed.
Yeah. And it's just funny watching George and his bowling whites at the beginning of the season that become bowling browns.
Yeah, I think I messaged this in our group of how different a human being George looks in like the first few episodes of this season as to how he is now and how he is for the rest of this season and his next season. He doesn't look like the same person.
No.
Yeah, he does have a glow up. He says he says he does in Heroes versus Villains. He definitely does. The beard suits him.
Yeah, I mean, like he loses more weight as the season goes on, and then Heroes versus Villains, like he looks great. So,
Until
but
he falls on his face.
Well, that is because, as I learned in King George's book,
Hey,
that as soon as the season ended, he started training because he knew he was probably going to get a callback. So that's why he looks better in Heroes vs. Villains.
that makes sense. Yeah, I really it really shows. So we get to the first immunity challenge, and the thing notable here is that Mitch and Joey Joey gasses out, and then Mitch is like telling him to come back, and George is like, he's got it. He's like yelling at the Brains tribe that he should just let Joey keep going. And then Simon clutches his second win in a row for the Brawn tribe with the slingshot. So that happens. Any other thoughts on this first challenge? Or first
They got to ride down in a cart, which is something I always want to do if I'm ever on Survivor.
And the editing, just like the dirt exploding.
Yeah.
that was my only note about the go-kart ride.
Yep. So, and of course, George finds this advantage of the very overpowered thing to use for this first tribal council of saving half your tribe, including yourself, and leaving half the tribe to vote. And we do get a little bit also about Phil before this this first immunity challenge.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to, otherwise we would get nothing.
Yep. And I think from what I remember at the time, because I was at least a little like following a little bit before I got back into the show, but I believe they gave Phil a little bit of content before the show as well, and they didn't give him as much as they gave him like in promotional material. But like, because they didn't explain like his crocheting, like because he had like the crocodile hat and whatnot. They didn't talk about that in the show. They gave it in promotional material, I believe. But I would have liked to see more of that in the show, actually. But we got a little bit of Phil saying why they're a brain, and like, so there's that. But George has this overpowered advantage, and he's going to use it to save Way and himself and 4 other people, and they're just going to blow up the tribal council to get Mitch out. And so this happens, and Mitch openly arguing with George openly arguing with Mitch. And so any other notes before we get to George taking everybody out of tribal?
It just kind of reminded me of when Harry came to his first tribal council as Dirty Harry and blindsided everyone. Everyone's kind of looking at him like, who the hell is this guy? It was like the entire tribe just looking at George like where's this guy come from? This is not who we've been spending our time with in camp.
Yeah, doesn't Mitch even say like, I thought this would go a lot smoother, and like, I didn't expect that you were just gonna come in and blow everything up. So yeah, then George goes, wait a minute, and stops JLP and saves himself, Way, Baden, Rachel, Georgia, and Cara, yeah. And as we'll get to the next episode, saving all the old and weak people.
I mean, yeah, he completely doesn't play this well. It's like early George is not the George we come to know. I don't know how he went about choosing the people, because he completely blindsides everybody. And I don't know, someone like Baden seemed like he might be someone that's well ingratiated with the stronger people in the tribe. And if your aim is to try and get out like the dictator doctor, as he calls him, like why would you leave Phil there? Because you're leaving like Phil as a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, so I've heard on Twitter, because I didn't like actually listen to his exit interview, but people said that George claimed that he just wanted all the screen time from Phil as like I guess the only gay in the season
in the village.
Yeah, and so he just decided to he was fine with letting Phil get taken out there. Um
That's not ally behavior.
Yeah.
right.
But it does make sense because, as he said, as George says in his book, like he was mad, like his sexuality wasn't shown on Brains versus Brawn at all.
Right.
So this could check out.
Right. Well, because the first time I had heard of it was Heroes versus Villains, when like Shoney is like, I gotta save my gay on this.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we didn't even know this on Brains versus Brawn.
Yeah. Well, a funny story in the book is while Brains versus Brawn was airing, Hayley would text George like after every show, because Hayley was watching it with her friends, and all of her friends would just say, "I think George is gay, but he doesn't know it." So it's just like a fun little thing, because Hayley knew too. So they were just laughing about how people thought he was closeted.
That's hilarious. So yes, so Phil is going to go 5-1 because Phil is going to appear as the physically weakest to everybody else that is left. Phil votes for Hayley, which is interesting. So Hayley immediately gets a vote. So any other thoughts on Phil going? I mean, I'll say Phil is probably the most screwed over first boot in Survivor history. I feel really bad because I think that they were at least going to be safe had this twist not happened. Clearly, it was going to be Way that was gonna go here, and Phil just gets completely screwed.
I'll just say I like this hat, and I would argue Candace Cody from Blood versus Water is the most screwed over first person.
Yeah, I could say Candace as well, because I mean, she was literally targeted because she was late coming in pre-game.
Yeah.
I'd be like happy to see Phil come back. I do think he was he could have been an interesting character in the season, but yeah, he was the first victim of the wrath of George.
Yep. Oh boy, poor Phil. All right, well, then we get into episode 2, and you have George immediately talking to everybody as to why he saved them, and he's like, because you were older and weaker. And you get like
crazy.
You get a shot of Joey laughing in the background because he was right there when George is telling everybody this.
I do have when I watched it a couple of times. The scene specifically where he's talking to Rachel, where he says, "I saved you because you're the weakest." Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was legit. I watched it a couple of times and it looked kind of dubbed over. Like I don't know whether he said it in a confessional, because you never see it. You see it from the back of George, and he's just talking to Rachel, and then you get all these expression shots. But there was a part of me when I watched it, I thought, this doesn't sound like he's actually saying this to her face, but maybe he did.
I mean, I would think it was at least maybe said, maybe it was edited together differently because they didn't have all the footage or something. I don't know, because Australian Survivor likes to chop things together. We've seen that, we know that. But like, I mean, just based on the fact that she has a reaction to like a confessional saying like that she didn't appreciate it and their relationship goes downhill because of this, like I have to think he actually did tell her this.
Yeah, he did. I actually just read that in his book about that tribal. So yeah, he actually did like say all that to those people.
It's a bizarre choice.
Well,
but
he
again,
says
it's hard to criticize because it always seems to work out for him. So
yeah, he says if you can take, because he was stereotyping people, so he wanted to break up these stereotypes. So he said if you can take the sting out of the insult, it loses its power. So that's why he did it.
All right then.
Yeah.
We also get the confessional from George here where he says that he whipped out his package at tribal council and Jonathan loved it.
Yes. I whipped out my package. I can't wait to keep doing George impressions too. All right. And then on Brawn, we have Emmett making fire with the laces from his shoe.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it is. And then we get the Emmett package of him having the plant-based diet and him being he's the freaking Mona Lisa, baby.
Yeah, I mean, as Eden said on this podcast or during the interview, he is the biggest physical threat in Survivor. So
Yeah, I mean, Emmett is a great physical competitor. We'll talk about it as we go through this review, that he wins a lot of challenges and like is a big factor for the Brawn tribe in winning the ones that they do as well. So like I totally agree. Emmett is definitely up there as one of the physically best. So um and so then we get to the reward challenge, and this is where we'll get to the argument with George and Baden afterwards, but this is where ends up being a tight race between Brains and Brawn. It's 2-2, and this is where Emmett on the winning point decides to taunt Joey instead of just winning the point, which is just funny. Any thoughts on this challenge? I do like this challenge, by the way, as well. This is a fun one.
Yeah, it's kind of like Zach in All Stars, where he's on the thing with is it Jackie? Or
Yeah,
where he's kind of like going backwards and forwards with the box and taunting her. I don't know, not a smart choice in a social game, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
I think Emmett put all his hopes on just physically getting his way through and not having to worry too much about that.
Right.
yeah. Only thing about this challenge is I like the additional part of where they had to crawl through something to like get to the actual wrestling part. So it actually kind of evens the odds. It's like a Brain is super quick, then they can actually, in theory, grab the bag before the Brawn even gets to like challenge them.
Yeah,
which George would have done.
Yes, he would have.
Yes, so let's get to that now. So then George and Baden get into an argument after the reward challenge, and George is claiming that he would have, because he wanted to go up against Gavin. And
I have the exact quote here from Baden. When they play up AFL legend Gavin, why did you raise your hand?
And George is like, I didn't care that he was an AFL legend.
I don't think he knew. I don't think he was aware that he was.
Yeah.
It does make me want to see it, though. It would have been interesting.
I would have loved to see it. But it's just like, yeah, Baden is just dumbfounded that George would say this.
And this is where you've got to like kind of question early George's tactics, where Baden is one of the people that should be on George's side, that should be one of George's allies. He saved him from that tribal council. And you just see all of his supposed allies at this point are just so done with him already. Like Rachel has no time with him. Baden has no time for him. We don't actually see Baden and George get a lot closer. We don't really see much of their relationship as to why that is. They're just suddenly cool together for some reason.
Yeah, well, I think Baden gets confessional later on where he's like, I don't have to like everybody that I'm working with, but like I'm just like, if it's best for my game, I'm gonna work with them. So like, I think that is interesting. And I will say I think maybe Hayley is a big reason for that as well, but because I think she has a better relationship with Baden, but we'll get to that. So and then the Brawn tribe loses the challenge, and this is the one with like the fish puzzle that Way and George are on, and Way ends up leading the Brains to victory, kind of proving herself a little bit, so that's pretty cool. And then
that's where we need Matt, Grayson Waller to like run in and be like, that's why you're here. Like we did for Baden and Champions vs. Contenders too.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Also during this challenge, they have to flip over a wheel. So my note is watch out, future George, because this is what hurts them in Here's Villains.
Yeah. At least this is into like deeper water. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the other one was just into mud.
A shallow pool of mud.
Yeah, I don't really understand the design changes for this one later. I mean, I know it's in a different place, but like I don't know. So the Brawn are gonna head to tribal, and it seems like easy that Janelle should be the easy boot from this tribe. As Janelle is calling out Emmett, still wanting to vote for Emmett because of him taunting Joey. That's going to lead to an argument at tribal. But this is where Simon tries to get the votes on Shannon at this very first tribal. This is going to kick off their rivalry together. And I can, like, from here, I actually do think, like, Simon is, like, a big fan because, like, immediately he's trying to make this giant strategic move. And like he has some numbers on his side here to potentially pull it off. But Gavin doesn't vote correctly, and Flick flips on them, and Big D doesn't go with them. So like they just kind of lose all their power at this vote. But I do think I think we'll get to Big D more in the next episode, but I thought his spot in this tribe was very, very interesting early on. So
yeah, I think this kind of set up Simon's pre-merge to be very difficult, and it's that thing of like, if you're going to take the shot, don't miss, because
Right.
from that point, it's like he loses trust with a lot of people, and it's an uphill battle from there. And like, I get his thought process for going for Shannon, but I do think it was probably too soon, and especially to pull that blindside together, like in the run up to tribal council, like maybe seed that and see how it goes and see if you can build it up. Go for the easy vote on this first one and try and make sure you get the job done at the next one, rather than just going for it and not having the numbers and showing your hand, essentially.
Yeah. It was I think it's just like he should have made sure he had the numbers, and he didn't. So any thoughts on Janelle? I mean, it's funny to watch her call out Emmett at tribal, but like she's kind of there where it's like I feel like they put her in. This is something I don't agree with. I've said it in a couple of the chats, but like with you guys, but like to set someone up to be fodder in a season, and like they were clearly setting her up to be an early boot, and like I just don't really agree with that. I think you should cast someone for actual merit in a season, but
yeah, she was kind of in a hopeless situation, like being on that tribe that's so obviously just going to focus on physical prowess. But I did appreciate it going for it and calling out Emmett when he deserved to be called out.
Oh, I do agree with that. She just, I mean, she was screwed anyway. So I mean, like, she did something at least. All right, episode 3. This is the Gavin boot episode. So we immediately open up with Gavin confused about the vote. And this is an instance of they were trying to cast Matt Rogers again, and then they failed to cast Matt Rogers. Well,
yeah, that was not it.
So poor Gavin does not know what's going on. And so we get I'm trying to remember, is this the reward challenge with the balls, or is that the next episode?
This is where they have to hold up the trough of water.
The trough of water,
where they throw water. Well, before we get there, this is a quote that Simon said at the beginning of the episode, which kind of plays into his entire Survivor career. Everything went according to plan, just not my plan.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
That's very true. Yeah. We also, before we get into that challenge, have the moment with George trying to talk to his tribe about resting. He said maybe we need resting, and then someone suggests, "Do you want to have a nap?" And he says, "I don't need a nap. I operate on 2 hours sleep." So it's, I don't know what George. I do agree that not burning out your tribe before a challenge, probably it does make sense. But then the fact that they do get fire immediately after George goes on his little walk.
And then doesn't he go for a walk argument. And then he's like, "I went for a walk. I'm now exhausted."
Yeah.
Oh, George. So then the challenge with the brain teaser. So George actually like begs his tribe to put him in, which is obviously a smart choice because George leads them to victory here in getting the early lead, and the Brawn cannot figure out this brain teaser, which is just pulling the ring through the rope, and they were just not doing that. So the brains win the challenge because of their brains and the Brawn's lack of. So then we get where Kez is going to find an idol, and Shannon and her alliance decide that they're going to target Gavin instead of Simon, and because they want to break up these 3 boys of Emmett, Simon, and Gavin. And then you have Big D that is considering flipping, and he tells Simon and that alliance, like, "Hey, why don't we go for Kez?" Because they were going to try to go for Shannon, but they need Big D's vote. So I just found this interesting that, like, the reason they vote for Kez is because of Big D. And, like, I just found this interesting because I thought later on it seems like Big D and Kez kind of get a little bit closer. So I'm just like, why is he offering Kez up as the vote? Does he know that Kez found an idol? I mean, it seems like maybe she told everybody and was going to play it regardless. I don't know.
I do like how Simon plays this after failing the previous vote, where he's kind of he's very diplomatic with Big D and kind of says, "This is all you. Like, you give us the name, we're happy to go with that." So I do think Simon plays that well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't necessarily know why Big D just gives them Kez's name. I just don't get it.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, who else would he put out there?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if he was that close to Shannon either. So I don't know who he would have put else he could have put out there.
Oh my God, this is sad. That I just watched the season. I can't remember her name. Chelsea. There you go. Yeah, you could have put out Chelsea.
Well, Chelsea was with Simon, right? Chelsea. He could have put out Benny.
Benny. Benny. Well, so, yeah, and Benny goes home next. So
yeah, I don't get why they don't just doesn't give them Benny's name, but whatever. We'll talk about that next episode. But yeah, so they go to Tribal and Kez does play her idol, or as we find out through votes that her name is Karen, but we don't know that because it's just confusing seeing Karen pop up. You're like, who's Karen? And so so Kez plays her idol, and Big D voted with like Kez's alliance anyway, so it was actually a wasted idol, but like, you know, at least she knew she was getting votes. And so Gavin is going to go with 6 votes, and yeah, just poor Gavin. I think it's interesting because they probably should have just taken their shot at Simon here. But like, also I know they need Simon for challenges. But like, it's not as egregious as I think Shannon misses the opportunity the next round to actually take Simon out. But like, yeah, just poor Gavin.
Yeah.
I think this was a mercy killing for Gavin.
Yeah.
I don't think he was cut out for the game.
Yeah, I don't think he knew what he was getting into.
No, I agree with that. I just feel bad because he didn't know what he was getting into. Like, he's just a mercy kill to take out. But all right. So then episode 4. So funny things. So this is, I think, the episode where they're doing yoga, and all of a sudden the music cuts out and George runs and interrupts the yoga. And this is where they're like, he's like, I don't have any underwear, so you can Hayley's like, so we might be able to see your dangleberries. He's like, I've got no berries to dangle. And then he asks Hayley if she wants to look at his ass. Which is what?
I just find it so funny that he kind of like waddles in and is like, "Oh, I'm late for class."
Oh God, so many good moments. Okay, so that happens, and then we also get George finding Baden gets the clue to the idol, and George ends up finding the idol before Baden, and you have the confessional of "Look at this," and so yeah, another iconic George confessional. But anything else before we get to the challenges? Well, I guess you have the reward challenge with the balls where Simon is doing Simon things and knocking the ball out of people's hands, which is fun.
I just have some quotes I want to repeat. I have one from Baden. I think George is a sociopath.
Yes, that one. Yes, we brought that up in our chat.
And then this one is from Benny, because I live in Los Angeles, so this actually makes perfect sense. A week out in LA is like a week out here in the Outback. You're sunburnt, dehydrated, and probably need counseling after. And I just want to say yes, Benny. That is correct.
Benny at least contributed something.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, we get the intro package for Benny, which I don't know why you're going to show one for someone that Australian Survivor does this, where they show an intro package for someone that's going to be booted that episode.
Yeah.
So, like,
it was at that moment I on my first watch that I wasn't worried for Simon anymore. I was like, well, Benny's the boot this episode, 100%.
Yep. So yeah, so then we get the puzzle challenge, which again, brains are gonna win because Benny screws it up and like basically doesn't give them all the letters they need.
Yeah.
And so
Benny is fucking useless in this challenge. Simon was losing his shit at Benny.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Simon's like,
bizarre.
Benny.
Yeah.
It's really odd. It's like his brain melted.
Yeah.
He's looking. There's just nobody there. He's
Right.
just staring. It's so weird. I kind of if someone needed to like move his mouse and get him to reboot.
Yep, yep. So then, yeah, this is where Big D ends up flipping at the tribal to force a tie. It's tied between Benny and Simon, and I just want to say then, so then Kez and Shannon flip on the revote because Simon pitches way better than Benny. But like, I just don't get why Shannon doesn't actually try to finish the job on Simon here. Like, she should have really made this move because
Well,
clearly.
Well, maybe there was something going wrong with Benny, like physically. So I would rather have, even if I'm not working with Simon, I'd rather have Simon on my team for challenges. And
Oh, I would too.
And
yeah.
So, I mean, Simon would have beaten Benny's pitch if he just sat completely silent for the entire tribal council. To be fair, but I think also you have Benny being very loose-lipped about things around camp. That I think there was just a lot of things that where they were like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. He's not someone that we can rely on. And I think early days, especially, like having people in your alliance that you can rely on is more important than taking out like someone who might become a threat if they get to merge, which Simon would be.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I mean, in this situation, I guess I would definitely want to keep Simon in the game as well. It's just like, I guess from what we're gonna see, that Shannon doesn't get another chance to take a shot at Simon. So,
Yeah.
so I think like she probably should have tried to make her move at this point, knowing that Simon was going to get her out eventually.
Yeah, because I don't think Benny would have ever been able to pull anything together to get Shannon out at any point.
I think that's very clear that he didn't know what he was doing. So
I would love to see Benny trying to negotiate a vote, like pull numbers. That would be so much fun.
I would like to see George talk to Benny.
Yeah, Jesus.
Now we need a captain season with Michael from Heroes versus Villains and Benny from Brains versus Brawn.
Oh, no.
No, what I'm realizing as we're talking about this, Benny is basically like Frasier from Heroes versus Villains, where they're just like, there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in Heroes versus Villains, but I believe I did listen to George's podcast on that, and he said those very words, that Fraser had nothing going on whenever George tried to talk to him, so he never wanted to work with him. So, so that I'm sure this would have been the case with Benny. So. All right. So then we get to episode 5. And this is where Simon finds his 2 idols. He finds one in the tree before the reward challenge, and then one hidden in the reward. So
I totally forgot that he found them like both in the same episode.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, yeah, because I knew when he found them both, but like I was like, I thought it was like in like 2 episodes in a row. I didn't think it was the same episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, Simon has that meme of "This is the worst day ever," but honestly, we should have one of "This is the best day ever." That'd be amazing to find 2 idols in one day.
Yeah, this is like the highest of highs of Simon's Survivor career.
Yeah,
yeah.
And when he finds the second idol, he says, "No one saw me," and then it immediately cuts to Gerald. I saw Simon find an idol.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if people saw him because he's just going to tell everyone anyway.
Yeah. Yep, we'll get to that. But I love that Gerald is the one to find him. And then, yeah, Gerald's just spreading it to his alliance. So. All right. So then on the Brains tribe, we also get the breakout of Joey as a Survivor character. I think Joey is an interesting one. I think Joey had like the tools to be a great player. I actually wouldn't mind seeing him again. I mean, we'll talk about that in a couple episodes when he gets booted. But like, I think he really did have all the tools. He had a good like core group that he could work with. But as we'll get to, I think he makes a huge mistake at this round by not keeping a bigger threat around as a shield. So But
Yeah, I think Joey got complacent with how much people were going to want to get rid of George.
yeah,
So he kind of just assumed he was safe while George was still in the game. But yeah, he wasn't prepared for Hayley to come for him eventually.
oh yeah,
We
yeah,
also in that but in this episode, this is where we get George telling Baden that he's already found his idol, which he
yeah.
names Diego.
Yes, Diego. Yeah, so then we also get to the immunity challenge, which is like George struggling to roll a ball into the hole, right? Kind of like a skee ball type of thing.
Yeah, but the first part of this challenge that I actually like is that big ramp where they all have to like go through an obstacle course and then catch the ball.
Oh
Like,
yes.
I mean, that's just fucking fun. Like,
Yeah.
I would just love to do that.
Yeah, I would too. It would be fun. Yeah, so George.
This is my biggest fear. If I was to play a Survivor, where there's a portion of the challenge where each person has to do a specific thing before the
Yes.
challenge can continue, and it coming down to just you, I'd just be like, it would be traumatizing, and I guarantee that that would be me, and I'd not even be thinking about the challenge anymore. I'd already be thinking about tribal and be like, oh god, it's all over.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you said earlier, Michael, when we started this. Like, I would also be the person that, like, you and George would not be great at the challenges. The only immunity I've won is a Pokemon quiz and power grab. So, like, I can't physically do anything either. So.
I'd be fucking great. I'm just saying. I have the confidence. I need to be. I need to make it happen. I don't know. Yeah, I doubt I would win, but you never know. I would at least try.
Yeah. Yep. So brains lose this challenge, and this is where then George comes in and flaunts his idol at camp in the open, and this forces Joey to want to target one of the middle people, and they go for Mitch because he's out in the open as the leader of the tribe. And Hayley and Rachel, I believe, are also like the middle people, because Joey has Andrew and Laura and Georgia. And so Joey makes the move on Mitch. George plays his idol at tribal, thinking that they're gonna vote for him. And you get the great reaction shot of George being confused, and then you get, as I shared the meme of like George being like, well, Mitch, I didn't actually vote for you. And Mitch not caring.
I think that this is the worst we've ever seen George play in his 2 seasons. I think this is the peak of early George madness. I don't know why you wear your idol around camp when they have numbers to split, or even if they don't split, just change the vote to someone else. You can't telegraph that early on that you have an idol and then give the people you're targeting several hours before tribal council to come up with a contingency plan. Of course, your plan didn't work. You gave them so much time to think. I just don't know why he did that. I feel like that's, again, kind of George wanting to be, as Harry calls it, the TV product, and wanting to just put on the TV game and be a memorable character, which he certainly is. But there was no real benefit for him to just wander around camp with his idol. He would have gathered the votes if he didn't show that he had an idol. He would have most likely got the majority, and maybe his people could have got someone out that he wanted, but he just wanted to show off.
Yeah. And my other favorite George quote is at tribal. He has his shirt unbuttoned, his dog shirt, and he's like, my body is here, Jonathan.
Yeah. It's here. George is great. Like everything out of his mouth is just fantastic. I almost can't believe he's a real person. He's like a TV character, which sounds silly because he is on TV, but like he just doesn't feel like a real person. He feels like if you were to write a Survivor player, like he feels like a creation, but it's just who he is, seemingly in real life as well. You see interviews and videos of him, and that's just his personality, and I love him for that.
And Matt and I have actually met him, so
yeah, he's
lucky you.
Yeah, he's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I loved meeting George in person, but
although I know why he wasn't on the Brawn tribe, because Neo beat him in a arm wrestling match. So
Stop mentioning Neo.
well, I
Battle
only
of the
did it
screen
once.
time.
I only did it once.
Yeah, we got one more.
All right, so Mitch goes home again. I think like this is a big mistake on Joey's part. Again, Mitch was never going to work with George under any circumstance. So like, I don't know, like if you were going to switch it to anybody else, why not target Cara? Like, I mean, at this point, I feel like that would have been the move, to take out Cara, and you're still keeping some middle people. But one's like, at that point, Mitch isn't gonna work with George, and I don't think Hayley has as much leverage to flip the vote as she does after a couple rounds after this. So, all right, episode 6. This is the Cara sacrifices herself for George episode, and this is where George criticizes Rachel after tribal and at the next challenge, and being like, some people don't, like, I can't remember exactly his wording, but like basically criticizing her in front of the other tribe too. Which
he spills everything about the tribe dynamics to the Brawn.
Yeah.
Before Joey can then go over to the Brawn.
Yeah,
I was gonna say Joey also talks a lot.
Yep, because the Brawn win the reward, and they take Joey over because they know he's gonna spill a lot because he talks a lot. So
I was kind of surprised. I thought they were gonna pick George because he's been so clearly on the outs on that tribe. I thought George is the obvious person to bring over and get the honest information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is this also where Gerald talks about loving milk? Or is that a little bit later?
Possibly. He does it several times.
Yeah,
yes.
like, he does a bunch.
Yeah, he talks about how he drinks like 5 liters of milk a day.
That's so much milk. That's so much milk.
Oh God.
We need Will and Gerald to meet, and then just see who can drink the most milk.
Maybe Gerald's coming to Over the Edge in December. We can get Will to come.
Can have a milk off.
Milk off. There you go.
So then Cara finds the re-hidden idol, and this is of course where also Joey is going to pull in Wei as well to be able to split the vote. And this is where, like, doesn't Wei basically tell George like she's not going to vote with them, which is just this is crazy, because then you have George really begging for his life in the game.
Yeah, where he's telling Wei, can't you wait until after this vote to leave us?
Yeah, to then screw me over and leave me for dead or whatever.
This is I was so mad at Wei for this, especially because, like, if she just stuck with them, the plan would have worked. Like, they would have had the numbers. But yeah, I think I do understand Wei being frustrated being allied with someone who's so chaotic, but I don't know. I feel like she wouldn't be there if not for him. Like, at least give him this one moment to try and make a move.
Yeah, I mean, because I also feel like Wei could be a logical player. I think when I did like a tier list of like the best AU players, I actually said she was a good player. But like, I mean, just because like after she's saved, she kind of has a lot of options to go with. But I don't know. She probably should have obviously taken the opportunity to still work with George at this vote, but.
She's just someone that just likes to stick in the background, and we see that later on when she gets in numbers, and she just stays like rooted in that, and you don't really remember she's there. Right. I think like being involved in a chaotic group with George was like not how she wanted to play the game, which does make sense. But yeah, it was frustrating to see this blow up because of that.
But if she did, then she could have been the Natalie White to George's Russell. So she messed up.
Yeah, she did mess up. I'll say that. I think she has the keys to be a better player than she was, but all right. So then Cara, Baden, and George are passing the idol around at tribal to try to divert like attention, or like try to make it so that something gets screwed up. And this is, of course, where Cara then does the motherly thing, and she plays her idol for George, and this is where we see George break down in tears.
Man, imagine if George leaves here. Like Australia Survivor is way different.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite, probably one of my favorite tribals in Survivor history, because it's also just like so brutal of like, and so like it just puts together why Survivor is so great, and like just like that Cara is willing to like do this motherly empath thing and just like save somebody with an idol instead of herself. And just like that George, who ends up being like this big villain, is like just so broken by this that someone would sacrifice their life in the game for him. It's such a good moment. And like obviously Kara's going to be saved by the non-limb, but like I mean it was still a great moment, even if like Kara's going to still be in the game after this.
I do think this was a very convenient non-elimination placement where production knows that like George is most likely getting a lot of votes here. Cara has the aisle she could play for. I do feel like this was maybe an instance of like, is there a way we can keep George around here at this point? But much like every non-elimination, George doesn't actually go, and oftentimes they end up screwing him more than they end up helping him. This is the only one that actually works out very well for him with Cara staying. But the rest of the non-eliminations that people say that were there to help George end up screwing him massively.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to some of them later that I do feel like impact George's game completely. So anything else to say on Cara going over and joining Brawn now?
No, we just stand into the next episode where she actually joins it. I just love her quote of, "They've got yoga, boxing, and dance class here. This place is like heaven."
Doesn't she also jump on them in the middle of the night?
Yeah, she also
Yeah.
That would piss me. If I was one, I'd be so pissed. She's like, who are you?
Yeah, they don't even know her, and she's just waking them up and jumping on top of them. So with that in episode 7, this is where Hayley is going to make her first real big move of the game, and this gives me so much more appreciation for Hayley's game in this season. And she puts together the numbers to blindside Joey, who up to this point has been in control for the last couple of rounds of this game, and just like for them to completely overthrow him in this massive early power shift is crazy. Any thoughts on the Joey blindside? I just can't say enough about how good this move is.
Well,
sorry. Yeah, you go.
Okay. I just like it. I just like how Joey even says that he becomes he last time he became the blindside king, and now he really is the blindside king because he got blindsided. And then he just says, "I can't see George lasting too much longer."
Yep.
Yeah. Before we get to the Joey blindside, we do have an awkward moment on the Brawn tribe where Simon's trying to bond with Cara, and he asks her how old are women when they go through the menopause, which in terms of a social game, Simon, that's not your best.
Are you not supposed to ask that?
I don't think it's certainly not like immediately after meeting someone.
This explains so many decisions that I've made have been wrong.
Yeah, because this is literally Simon trying to compete with Shannon for who can pull Cara to their side, and this is how he
Shannon won that quite easily.
Yeah.
It's quite a nice moment when Cara's doing her empath thing with Shannon. Like, I don't know if I'm someone that particularly believes all that stuff, but I don't know. She seems to, I don't know, have some way to connect with people, and it was quite emotional, and better than Simon's effort anyway.
Yeah. Well, and so then we also do get to the next challenge where they reveal Cara's still in the game, and you have George going, "Cara!"
Oh, Cara, yeah. I hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
The inflection, "Oh, Cara," and then like the smile. Yeah,
I love that.
and that's a challenge where the Brains beat the Brawn in holding up the water buckets, which was
Yeah.
very impressive.
So the first,
I
you can go,
yeah,
Michael.
I have that in my notes where it's like the challenge where it's purely a physical challenge. I
Yes.
don't understand how Braun did that so badly. I'm guessing just placement and like poor like dropouts kind of screwing the rest of the group, whereas the Brains were able to kind of keep their line solid. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was made for the Braun.
Yeah, but wasn't the water also based off like your starting weight or something? Because
Yeah.
that would the Brawn
Maybe.
would have had way more weight to like carry. So I could see that.
Right.
And then Cara loses reward again.
Yeah. Yeah, you get Gerald also throwing his hat down. Frustration.
Yeah. I would not be mad if I was there. He was like holding 2 or 3 barrels at once.
Yeah. Yeah. It was frustrating because also one of them was like Chelsea literally accidentally like took her hand off one of the barrel, and like that's why she got taken out.
And that really affects like the entire thing because now there's more weight to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably one of the only times Chelsea's going to get mentioned in this podcast.
Yeah. I think we've already mentioned her once before, so that's more than I thought we were going to. And then the only thing I want to say about the next challenge is I love that they hid an idol in the challenge.
Yes.
And then multiple people went after it. Like,
yeah,
I want to see this more.
Yeah, well, so this is like the second chances immunity idol that Kelly Wentworth finds like on like on a much bigger level.
Because people knew, as like everybody playing knew there was an idol there.
Yeah, so Hayley's going to find her idol here after
public
beating
community
George.
idol.
Yeah, the public community idol. Yep.
I love how she finds the idol, runs back to her tribe, is like in like battle mode, like she's ready to continue. It's like, damn, Hayley, you're fucking awesome.
Yeah, and so then she doesn't even have to like play her idol or anything to get Joey out. Like she literally rallies the numbers because they know that there's this clique of 4 that's formed. So she gets Rachel, the other Swain vote here, which is crazy because Rachel's going to be really close to Laura and Georgia in the next few episodes. And so like that's crazy that she gets Rachel to flip on Joey here. And then obviously like they get George and then they get Baden and Way. And again, Joey had a huge hand in pulling Way over. So like it's just crazy how this comes together. And of course you get the great voting confessional, as I'm sure we'll mention many more of George's voting confessionals of I'm praying to the Macedonian Jesus that Joey runs out of snake oil tonight.
I think that this, like, a lot of this was brilliance by Hayley, but Joey also massively kind of messed this up. If you're going to pull someone in like Way, who came with you because, you know, she wanted to find a bit more security and people that were going to have her back, to then immediately kind of cast her back and decide to split the votes on her. And then Hayley comes and tells tells Way that they're splitting on you tonight, which is the factor in her flipping back.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like he definitely misplays like getting the votes to go that way too. So but yeah, no, I would be fine seeing Joey come back. I think he'd be an interesting returnee because I think he has game to him. He just didn't make it come together as well as he could have. So.
Yeah, and then plus he was on a tribe with George and Hayley, who are like 2 of the best Australian players ever. So it's kind of
exactly. So I don't know that he will come back. He might just be one of those players that gets forgotten over time.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
You win some and then you lose some, Joey. Sorry, buddy.
All right. So then we get to the swap episode, and this is a decision I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot. But this is the swap. And so we end up with 5 brains with 4 brawn on the new brains tribe. So George and Cara, and then you get Rachel, Georgia, and Laura. And then you have Emmett, Big D, Gerald, and Kez. And then you have the other the brawn side, which is Baden, Way, Andrew, and Hayley, with Simon, Shannon, Danny, Chelsea, and oh geez.
I don't know, man. That was just I was just watching you. That was just very impressive. You did that all from your memory. You weren't looking at notes or anything.
Yeah.
I assumed you were reading it, and then I was like, hold on, he's just doing this off the top of his head. I don't know how you do that. Like, if you just told me to name 10 cast members from this season, I don't know if I could off the top of my head.
Yeah. So I can't remember who I'm missing. Simon, whatever.
Shannon.
Yeah.
Did you say Shannon?
Simon, Shannon, Danny, Chelsea, and whoever the other person. Flick. Yes. Yeah. I can't believe I forgot Flick. Who's going to return later, but yes. So it's 5-4 both sides. And so this is how the swap is going to go. And basically George and Cara is able to use her relationship that she just built with the Brawns to pull George in. And because she's basically spilled the tea that George was on the bottom, and so they're willing to pull him in. And this leaves the 3 girls on the bottom. This is also where Laura and Rachel find that idol on the original Brains.
Yeah, and this is where George listens in onto them after they find it.
Yeah.
Some quotes I just wanted to say. This one from Rachel made me laugh. Is when they were following the rope and they found it. Is it an advantage? Is it an idol? Is it a hamburger?
Yes.
Just imagine if there's a hamburger out there just in the wild, and then after they're like, "Oh, it's an idol," it cuts to George. Ah, shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before we get to the tribe swap part, when they come in to do the tribe swap and they see that Joey's gone, I just hate, and this is one of my biggest problems with the Brawn tribe, I hate this nonsense reaction they have where it's like, oh, you got rid of Joey. What were you thinking? Do you not like winning challenges? Or it's just like, just shut up. Let's have a look at the final 5 of the final 6 of this season. How many of you are there?
Yeah.
Physical challenges are not the most important thing in the world. It's more important to take out someone who's going to be a threat to you. Yet you don't know, they don't know the tribe dynamics on Brain, but they think they do. It's like, oh, this guy was strong, so why would you get rid of him? Shut up. You're an idiot.
So you're saying you're not a big fan of Danny, of D Max Danny.
I don't dislike Danny, but
no. But I definitely agree.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's like you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I don't think Danny is I think Danny is another one who has tools and she just misuses them. She does moves that don't actually make sense for her game in terms of having numbers to progress forward. So I just I agree with you guys. Challenges, more often than not, I see physical threats get taken out pretty soon, either late merge, mid merge, or mid pre-merge, late pre-merge, and then early merge. That's basically where you see a lot of physical threats go home.
And especially on the Brawn tribe where they're we need to keep physical strength. You don't. You have so much.
Yeah.
You have 10, you have 6, 7 players that are normally only 1 per tribe on a normal season. Yeah. You don't need to keep your strength. You're perfectly fine. Look at the people you're going up against. You think you need to keep challenge strength so you can go up against George in a physical competition? Shut up.
Okay, George would argue this. George would argue this. He can take on anyone. No, but you're right with the Brawn. It's you have so much muscle. Oh no, you lost 5% of your total strength. Oh, what are you going to do now?
Yeah,
I wonder if we can beat Way.
Yeah. Wow, you really don't like Way. You are just throwing her under the bus.
No, I don't dislike Way. I dislike these challenge idiots.
Yeah,
go apply for the challenge.
Yeah. Well, at the time, the challenge wasn't in Australia. I think it happened right after this season or right after Blood versus Water. So
yeah.
Well, they should have waited.
Yeah. All right. So then
that's my rant over.
You're good. We have plenty of rants left, I'm sure. All right. Oh, yeah. So then we have the challenge where it's the getting the ball and trying to cross the beam, and then 3 people are trying to
float. The floating ball maze, which I love that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good challenge. It was in Koran, I think. So, so the new Brawn tribe wins, and sending the new brains to tribal. And my favorite thing is then George is trying to get the Bronze to agree to split a vote. And they get.
I gotta say, it's pretty ballsy of George to kind of come in and be like, it makes sense to split the vote, but like when you're in a new tribe and you don't really know 100% if these people are with you, like it is risky. And I mean,
Well,
it backfires, but it's nothing to do with George.
yeah. Well, to be fair, before that, Big D actually tells George, you can be the one to choose who goes first. So I thought, one, that was a good move by Big D. And then maybe that's where George got the idea. Well, he gave me control, so now I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I just don't understand how Cara messed this up so bad. I don't understand it.
Yeah, we'll get to that in very shortly. I also wanted to say, as soon as George gets swapped and he's like, he does the cheering where he's like, yes.
This is where we get the first mention of George being the cockroach. Laura is the one that dubs him the cockroach.
Yep. Yep. The cockroach of Bankstown.
Yeah.
Oh, did we also miss the iconic JLP quote from the last episode of the it was some because George brought up the polls and he's like, it's why you should always go to the polls or something.
Oh yeah.
We forgot that. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned much of JLP's like after tribal kind of comments, but yeah, they're also really good in terms of separating him from Jeff. I almost forgot Jeff's name there. And like you have his innuendos in the challenges, and then his little kind of dad jokes at the end of tribal. I love JLP.
I do too. He's so good. So they're gonna split the votes, and so it's going to be they're supposed to split the votes on Rachel and Georgia. And we think, okay, Rachel or Georgia going home. Laura's gonna play her idol. Even if she plays it on Rachel, then I guess Georgia's going. Which Georgia's not really been anything in this season. And so then we know that Big D's name is coming up, which is interesting because they don't really actually give a reason why those three are voting Big D. Like they're just like, oh, we're just gonna put our votes on Big D. It's like, this is interesting that we don't know why. But then so we get to the votes that are about to be read. Laura plays her idol for Rachel. And then Cara's like, oh, I think I've cooked this. And she voted for Laura. And so it's 2 votes Georgia and the 3 votes Big D send Big D home. And I'm just like, how did this get screwed up?
So like my memory of this was that Cara voted for the wrong person within the split vote, which gives like the idol player the most votes, and that's how it went wrong. But I didn't remember she literally votes for someone who's not even one of the options that they're voting for. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. I will say I've heard on social media, apparently in Cara's deep dive, she said that Big D apparently wanted to quit the game. And so she deliberately screwed it up to let him go home. I think that might be Cara just giving herself more credit because I think she actually just screwed this up because we didn't really, I mean, everybody probably says they want to quit out there at some stage or like they joke about it. From what it seemed, I really don't think Big D is the type of guy to necessarily like just quit. He seemed very lighthearted and in a good mood out there too. So like
also like if he wants to leave, let him leave. You've managed to get yourself into a good position with this new alliance. If she did deliberately do it, you're messing up. They're lucky really that it didn't backfire way worse for them. But you could be messing up this majority that you've just made to take someone out that wants to leave the game. Just solidify your numbers first, and then if Big D wanted to leave, maybe you can make him the next one. But yeah, I think that's Cara probably just coming up with a reason afterwards.
Yeah, I still don't know why, Big D was the one to get the votes from those 3, but so that's the only piece of the puzzle that's missing here. But maybe just they saw Big D is kind of leading things a little bit on that side. So
I just want to share this whole interaction that happened at Tribal. Cara, I'm just confused. Emmett, just watch. Big D, why are you always stressing? I don't know. I just found that funny. Because that was happening while they were reading the votes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also
Sorry, go on.
No, you can go.
It's I forgot what I was going to say now. as George says in the next episode, it goes down as one of the biggest misplays in Survivor
Yes.
Australia history. So at least she has that to her name. She will always be remembered for as long as people are talking about Survivor Australia as the person who cooked the vote.
Yes, I cooked this. Yes. No, I mean, I thought Big D, his position early on was interesting on original Brawn. He also had confessionals where you go, "This is spicy." um, but like, I don't know. Again, kind of a one-time forgotten character at this point. So
I did kind of like him.
I did
He
too.
had this like odd like aura about him where it was like he like he was in this really powerful position where he will let people come to Big D.
Yes.
They will give their pitch to Big D. And it was a very unique kind of way to play the game. But yeah, I wonder what would have happened if he would have stayed, because I think he was pretty well entrenched with that group. So if he survives this forward, he probably makes merge. And yeah, who knows from there? He probably goes down in the blaze of glory that the rest of the Brawns do, but
Yeah, well, Kez was crying after he got voted out. So like they clearly had a good bond. So all right. Well, Big D goes, as George says in episode 9. That was one of the biggest misplays in history. But we also get Georgia gets evacuated for 24 hours because she just stops the challenge, says she can't do it. Then it's the interesting one of the other first big twists of the game. I mean, we had the immediate advantage in the first round, but like this is, I guess, the biggest twist so far. And this is where 2 people from each tribe are going to win immunity, and both tribes are going to vote somebody out. And so this is Andrew and surprisingly Wei win for the New Brawn tribe, and the brains, it is Rachel and it is
Emmett.
Yeah, Emmett. Yep, of course. So yeah, so Emmett wins his first challenge, and so yeah, so this is interesting. This is going to lead to our big tribal council where Shannon goes. But any thoughts here about like this twist?
The twist is I think I would have liked it if they basically didn't do it like 1 or 2 more times later on in the season. But I did like this challenge where parts of it you had to work together. So I did like that. So because
I like that. I like that the brains.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go.
No,
I like that the brains kind of helped each other through it all, whereas you had like the brains dragging everyone to the same point, so they all had the same time on the final part of it, whereas the Brawn were just every man for themselves, and you have Simon just leaving everyone in the dust to try and get the idol or the necklace.
I did find Simon being like really happy for Wei pretty cute as well. Like
and then after this challenge, Simon asks how's it going over there, and then Emmett goes, I know you have an idol. So
oops.
It's like that's awkward.
Oopsie. All right, so then we get to the tribal. Oh, well, I mean, we should mention obviously Hayley has the move where she basically knows that like her and Baden are now the ones on the chopping block because the original Brawns supposedly have the numbers. And so she basically is like, I'm going to flip a coin and play the idol for whoever the coin lands on. So this is a good move from Hayley because obviously it gets the Brawns to go against each other because they're paranoid. And so this is a great move. This is another one of Hayley's best moves in the season.
Yeah, but a coin flip, she stole that from Andy in Champions versus Contenders too.
Andy.
Yeah, Andy gets a mention. Who'd have thought? This is kind of the complete opposite of what I talked about with George walking around walking around camp with his idol, where Hayley knows that this is actually the best way to play this, and they can't split. They just have to load their votes on someone. They have a 50-50 shot. She's just going to play for one of her allies, and it causes them to completely break apart. Whereas when George did it, there was no reason for them to break because they had the numbers. Right. So yeah, this was perfectly played by Hayley, and this was like the Joey blindside was great, but I think this is where I started to be like Hayley as a kind of top tier player.
Oh yeah, for sure. So this is then where we get to the tribal, and after like basically Danny wants to cut Shannon now, and like and Simon wants to make the move on Shannon finally, or again try to make the move. And so we get to tribal and we find out whoever the two people are that get voted out, the two people from each side will then have to unanimously agree which of the two they want to boot. And so Shannon gets blindsided and Laura gets voted out. And basically Shannon gets exposed for trying to split the bronze up. And originally she has Way and Emmett are both willing to keep her. And then basically Simon helps expose to Emmett that she tried to plot against the bronze. And Emmett's like, ooh, Shannon, you shouldn't have done that. And so
you're going home.
yeah, and like then they're still gonna reveal the votes as if we don't like slowly reveal them, deciding who gets voted out as if we don't know what's gonna happen now. So Shannon goes home. Shannon was someone that I really think had potential to come back as well, and I thought she had more potential to be a good player. So again, as we said earlier, it's shocking to see her go this early.
I think Shannon handled this very well. Like it was a really brutal elimination, and having everyone kind of turn on her, but she handled it with grace and kind of asked for a hug when she got up. And I think, give the girl a hug on her way out.
Yeah, and I mean, she's only the second woman to leave the game in this season because 6 out of the first 7 boots were men, which is crazy as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I would like to see Shannon come back as well. I mean, unfortunately, we're not going to get a rematch of her versus Simon unless I doubt it at this point. But
you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
But yeah, any other thoughts before we head to episode 10? All right, well, episode 10, this is where Georgia returns after the 24-hour rule, or before the 24-hour rule ends. And we don't know what was wrong with her. But this is where new brains lose, and Georgia, Laura, and Rachel try to get Cara out for cooking the vote. And this is where Georgia is going to get voted right back out. So any thoughts on this episode?
Not about Georgia, because she was just kind of there. But this was where the reward was for tacos and margaritas, and I just like George just walking up, getting a margarita, and then just downing it and going, "That was good," while everybody else was just sipping it.
And
doing his little tequila dance. Yeah. Also, at the beginning of this episode, this is where Hayley once again shows what a great player she is, where she's just made this move on Shannon, and now Danny is wanting to kind of bring her in, but she's in focus on Flick, but Hayley moves over to Flick and tries to shift that focus onto Danny.
Yeah, this is another great move of her wanting to like work with Flick and being like, I don't want to lose Flick because she's someone that I would rather work with in this game. And so I think this is definitely a great move, and like shows like that Hayley and Flick did have like a relationship, as we'll see going through the rest of the game. Yeah. So I mean, any other thoughts?
Yeah, bye, Georgia.
Nothing character in this season.
Nah, you did not even need 24 hours to come back. You could have just left after 2.
Yeah.
I did have one game theory on this one where they're trying to flip Kez, and Kez seems very close to, because she doesn't want to be told what to do by Emmett.
Right.
And I think the play there to try and get Kez, they should have sent in Laura to say, like, I played my idol for my ally. Like, I protect my people. Like, you can be a part of that, and we'd be in it together. And I've proved that that's how I'm playing this game. And I think that could have been something that could have got Kez over the line with it. But we don't see them kind of broaching it that way.
Yeah, I think probably Laura clearly is the only capable player of those 3, in my opinion.
I really like Laura.
Yeah, same.
I did too. All right, so episode 11, we get an intro package from Rachel. No, so this means we know she's going.
Yeah. As soon as it popped up, I was like, well, yeah, she's going out.
So yes, this is where Rachel tries to go for Emmett at this round, but gets voted out after a split, and George and Cara decide that they're still going to get Rachel out, which makes sense. I mean, Rachel and George didn't get along, so like it made sense to keep Emmett in the game this round. Any other thoughts
And I
about
think,
Rachel or about the episode?
about
I
the
have nothing
episode?
about the episode. I have a bunch, but Michael, go.
I think this is where Rachel starts to try and talk to George about potentially working together, and he's like, "You haven't spoken to me in weeks."
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of a thing about getting tunnel blindness with a certain player and ruling out like working with anybody. I think the best Survivor players never close doors. Like you never know when you might need somebody, and maybe if she'd had more of a relationship with George, or at least been more civil over those weeks, like maybe George could have been someone she had a conversation with. But
yeah,
every time they go, this minority goes to tribal council, they keep having the same conversations with the same people to try and flip things because they've completely shut doors on everyone else in the tribe, so they can't talk to them.
right,
So they're kind of just in a screwed position at that point by their own making.
exactly. So
Well, here are my notes about this episode. This is where Danny first introduces the idea of pulling the Sandra Bullock over on
yes,
Simon.
yep.
And then this is also where the tribes get letters from home. Hayley got like the majority of that tribe's one, so I was like, well, she's definitely winning. And then George's quote after he started crying after his letter is like, I knew only Dougie would make me emotional.
Yes, his dog Douglas. Yes.
And then oh, sorry, go.
Sorry, that reminds me as well. They also had letters from home in like day 3 or something, like earlier
Yeah,
on.
it was the
pictures.
Brawn one, like the pictures. Yeah.
They had the pictures from
it's
home,
like I think it was day 5 maybe, but
Yeah.
it's like I'm sorry, maybe I'm just not an emotional person. I'm not missing my family that soon. Like they're all sobbing. Like
this was
come
also
on.
after the pandemic, so
Yes.
they were even quarantined longer in the hotel. So maybe that could have been it too.
Yeah, we forgot to
Cry me a
mention.
river.
Okay.
Yeah, we forgot to mention this is the first pandemic Survivor season, post-pandemic, and so like obviously this is why it's taking place in the outback this season, as opposed to on an actual island. So we should mention that.
Yes, the first post-pandemic of Australia, because wasn't it South Africa be back before that?
I don't remember because I
Okay.
think Immunity Island season SA8, I believe, it might have come out soon after this. I don't think it came out before this.
Well, I'll Google that after I'm done with my notes. But also in this episode, the immunity challenge, they also make a common US challenge even harder because all the ropes are tangled up, but now you have to move blocks out to get the ropes untangled to get the key down, and then you also have to roll a ball over what looks like a 5-foot beam. Like that looks really fucking hard.
Yeah. There's some good challenges in this season as we've talked about. I really like that they tried to balance it out between brainy challenges and brawny challenges, kind of thing, and just different types of challenges. So
I think it definitely led more towards the Brawn, but
well, that's true. But I mean, like early on, you had Brawn really screwing up on the puzzle stuff. So, all right. So anything else on Rachel's boot, or are we ready to move to, I think, a big discussion episode?
I don't think we have anything to talk about next episode, do we?
Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to our dear friend Simon Mead. All right, let's talk about it.
Just a point of reference to clarify: Immunity Island filmed way before Brains versus Brawn.
Oh,
and then let me just make sure these dates are right. Yes. It came. Immunity Island premiered on June 3rd, 2021, and then Brains versus Brawn premiered on July 18th, 2021. So Immunity Island
so they aired around the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Well, I wasn't correcting it because now I was just like, was it? Because I remember it was a big deal of like South Africa is doing a season after the pandemic. So
yeah, because they were doing it in like on the African coast, I believe, that season. So they were also doing something similar to Australia in that way. All right. So We'll talk about that at another stage in this international rewatch. Um, all right, let's talk about the Simon Boot episode because so just to get into it, this is where the new Brawn are gonna throw the challenge to get rid of Simon. And just in my opinion, I think Danny really screws her entire game up by getting rid of Simon this soon. She has someone who clearly trusts her because he's gonna tell her about his two idols. Someone who is a massive shield in the game later on and has these connections with like Emmett and on the other side. And just like she's gonna put herself out there to people like Hayley, who is going to use that against her. And just like I think Danny really screws her entire game up by taking Simon out here.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree because Simon would have been like target number one at the merge.
Yes.
So, but I also see her logic of because the merge is coming up, so you probably want to get him out now because he is a challenge beast, and then plus he has two idols, so he could, go on a run.
Yeah, but it's a challenge beast that is on your side. And I'm someone who will keep meat shields around. I want to keep bigger threats in the game for myself to work with and to take the target off my back as like a strategic threat. So like
Yeah, and I think if they take out Simon at this point, the Brawns will merge with good numbers as well. So it's like they take out someone that would have helped them. But I think she just got so wrapped up in the idea of the Sandra Bullock blindside that I don't know, she just wanted to get it done. And I do see the logic, like Matt says, of taking out someone that has two idols. That's also two idols that can go back into play, and he is going to be a big problem. And if you could take him out, why not?
Fair. I mean, it just like it's just funny. Also, then Hayley uses that to her advantage to get if Simon does play one of his two idols, that Danny would be the secondary target instead of Flick.
Yeah. Hayley's really good. After watching this again, I was like, man, Hayley's really good.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I know it's going to lose trust in the next couple of rounds, clearly, but like, I mean, regardless of how a non-elim happens and whatnot, but I still think it's a great move for Hayley to do this. So,
yeah, it is risky to kind of put thoughts on a big player like Danny that could potentially come back to haunt you. But yeah, when someone has two idols and you're loading up all your votes on them, in the many orgs I've played, like if there's a vote like that, I'll always put my vote somewhere else because you never want to rely on someone not playing an idol to stop you going home. So always have that backup, and yeah, Hayley plays that very well.
Yeah, and then plus this is the tribal where George and Cara get to come in, which is another twist where I'm like, I don't know if I like this one.
Yeah, I think so. They get the twist of Cara finds the thing where she gets to take herself and one other person and go to tribal and vote as well, which is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I was like, that is just way too big. And she finds that at the candy store, which I say this every time. I would hate this fucking reward if I was ever playing Survivor. Do not want chocolate after 30 days of eating nothing.
Yep. And you have I think it's fun to see like the giant tubes of all like the big like colored candy.
Yeah. It would be fun now if I go to that candy store now, that'd be awesome. But not if I'm on Survivor.
Yeah. It's really cool, but so
one thing about the candy store, how do you guys draw straws? Because George pulled out the longest one and he had to go last or like second to last, but isn't it whoever pulls out the short one goes last? Or
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was with George on that one.
Okay, yeah, same. I was like that's just a weird way to do it, but okay.
Yeah. And then you get George being like, I was trying to look for an advantage, but my tummy was full or something.
I really liked Kez being super excited as well. And at one point, she just grabs a load of like profiteroles and puts them on her stomach.
Yeah, and then she was as she joined the group, she was like licking everything off because if you're last, you can basically do whatever you want.
Yeah, as we learned from Nick.
Yeah,
and you have the plant-based Superman Emmett rubbing chocolate on his. To savor it. Oh my God. And also, if he's on a plant-based diet, I'm shocked he's even eating like candy and things. But
I think sugar cane,
oh,
some
that's
sugar
true.
cane, so I think it's fine. As long as it's not
I
meat
suppose
or
25 days or whatever it is of starving on an island will get you to eat pretty much anything.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know. He just said he was super strict on his plant-based diet, so it's like,
well, probably in real life, yes.
yes.
If you're on Survivor, I think you could draw the line.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the immunity challenge, which you talked about, where they threw and Simon set out. This is where I posted the image of Australian challenges making everything way harder. Because in US, it's just them stacking blocks. But here they have you have to stack a little ball on like 8 little poles. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, this was a good challenge for sure. Like we've kind of seen variations of like holding the ropes attached to the platform as well and putting something on top. So
yeah. I want them to bring this challenge back, but only if both tribes actually play it. So
yes, yeah. I would think that this challenge could definitely come back, at least in Australian Survivor. So, all right. Well, yeah. Goodbye, Simon. Unfortunately, it was great talking to Simon. Of course, we didn't get to ask him much about or really anything about Brains versus Brawn, but yeah.
But we get to talk about him in a couple weeks, so
yes, very true. We get to talk about him again, luckily, and so I'm very happy. Like I think Simon absolutely deserved to be a returnee because he was a star of this pre-merge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's Stevie and fucking Andy can be returnees. I think Simon can't because Simon was a challenge beast.
Yes,
and going out with 2 idols. He is the fourth person. Simon is the 4th person globally to go out with 2 idols, just so everybody remembers, because somebody in South Africa did it before Simon.
Yes, so it is, Kelly Kim, James Clement, Simon, and then Shane. But but yeah, so so now we get to the merge and we get the fire trophy, which I don't know, like
it should have been the Queen
Elizabeth. Yes, it's George.
Queen Elizabeth tribe.
I would have preferred that over the fire truck.
It's like this is almost as bad as America.
Or No Bag.
Yeah, No Bag. Or Dang Rain, although that was funny because they wanted to call it Fuck Rain, but CBS wouldn't let them.
That's hilarious. That one's hilarious though. And I can imagine like Penner saying that. But anyway, so yes, so this episode is fun. I really like the challenge where it's like where they get like the option of picking once they land the beanbag on one of the platforms, they get to pick one of the food items. And so
and George finishes first, so nobody can say that he's not a challenge beast.
Yeah. It's really funny to watch. And so George gets the hamburger. He's trying to look for, I think he was trying to look for an advantage, but he's like, no, I'm hungry. I'm going to take the hamburger.
Yeah. I don't blame him.
I was very surprised that when Emmett won the big jar, I was like, oh, there's something got to be in that jar. But then nothing ever gets mentioned, so I guess not.
Nope. And then what it comes down to Kez and Gerald of course gets the milk.
Yeah. Which he just downed, and then he downed it like so fast, like half of it was like spilled over him. It's like, man, savor that.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget the most important thing. Chelsea got the phone call from home, and then afterwards she has this quote: "A call from home has given me the determination and strength to go far in this game." Well, Chelsea, I don't think that actually happened.
No, yep. The third time we mentioned Chelsea in this podcast, maybe the third time we even hear her speak in the entire season. Oh God. All right. So then obviously then you get back at camp, you get George introducing himself to people. I'm George, I'm 31.
Double Agent George.
And then we get the Queen Elizabeth quote, which is great. And then we get to the immunity challenge. Who wins the, I guess, technical?
Emmett.
Emmett. Right.
I mean, basically, anytime you say who wins this challenge, the answer is going to be Emmett if he's in the game.
Yes. So
Emmett or Hayley. Yeah.
Emmett or Hayley.
So Emmett wins the first 3 in a row, right? Yeah. Yep. So we then get back to camp, and this is where George is playing both sides, and this is where George's game continues to really skyrocket in this season. And they're discussing options, and he basically wants Hayley to play her public immunity idol to save Laura, and then vote for Danny initially, and because he knows that Hayley wants to get Danny out of the game. Then Kez finds a public immunity idol, or at least in front of other people, finds an idol
in front of George, Emmett, and Danny.
Yep. So George immediately knows that's not good. So he goes to Hayley and tells her and everybody else, hey, vote for Kez because she has an idol. And we're gonna put our votes on Laura still to make them think that we're with them still. And so Hayley's gonna play her idol on Laura. I guess Laura's gonna vote for Danny in case Kez does play her idol still, so Danny would go home as the other option. And Kez is blindsided, and of course she hands her idol to Flick, which shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, which should not be allowed.
Nope.
Which they've changed the rules since, but it's just like, man, fuck that. It's like the whole point of voting somebody out with an idol is to get rid of the idol.
Right.
Yeah.
This was such a fantastic blindside though on Kez. It was such a good move to be like, someone just found an idol in front of me. They're not going to see this coming. Let's take them out. Like, it was such a good move by George.
What really kind of hit me with this is it's actually very similar to the famous Daisy blindside, where you have kind of working with the two sides. You have someone within the alliance finding an idol. Brooke did on All Stars, and then Kez does here, and using that to kind of flush someone out of the game. There was some similarities with that blindside as well, and this to me is when George really starts to become kind of King George, and this was a perfectly planned blindside, and seeing George and Hayley come together and work together was fantastic.
Yeah, it was so good. And you have George's confessional with for Laura being like, every time I vote for you, Laura, I don't actually want you to go home. See you at camp tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this episode?
No.
All right. Bye, Kez.
Really
Kez
good
some
merge
interesting
episode,
facial reactions, but
because it's facial. Yeah, she was like a perfect merge boot where she gave us just enough, and I don't want more. So
yeah, and she's not on the jury, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
All right. So then episode 14, this is where Chelsea is initially, all of a sudden next episode, we get into it and they're like, everybody else is saying, oh, Chelsea got taken out for medical reasons. We don't even know what happened. Apparently, we'll find out later she lost her sense of balance, which I don't quite understand, but
that can happen.
I know. I don't know. It was just like, I don't know what that means. So, but all right, so then this is where we're going to get probably the most unfair twist of the game, which is that 3 people are going to win the immunity and then compete in a fire-making challenge where one person is going to cast 1 vote to take somebody out. And this is where this is initially, I think we'll talk about it more next episode with Hayley throwing George under the bus, but this is where basically Danny wins the fire making and she's going to get to decide between Hayley or Baden who she wants to get out. And this is where Baden gets completely screwed over. So thoughts on this move and twist?
Dumb twist.
Yeah.
I mean, it was dumb when I thought it was dumb to begin with when it said, only 3 people can vote. But at least there's some kind of intrigue there with depending on who wins of the 3, but then none of that even matters. And it's like, okay, so we're going to narrow the 3 down to 1, and that person decides who goes. At least the only kind of saving grace to it is a non-elimination episode, and this leads to an exile twist rather than elimination. But yeah, I don't give one person the power to decide who goes.
Yeah. The only time somebody should be the only one who votes is if they pull off something like Raymond did in Titans vs. Rebels.
Yes.
Like that's the only time. It was like, this is just like broken. They're like, fuck this.
Or if it's final 3.
Yeah, final. Well, yes.
Yeah. Well, And so this, I think, just really screws over Hayley's game here. And I know like she was kind of making a move that kind of also hurts her game, throwing George under the bus here, which I understand why she does it, but just like losing Baden here, who I think was like the glue that kind of also held George and Hayley together for this next round, like this really destroyed her game and like initially here. So I just don't like this twist and how it impacted her and how some people view Hayley's game as a winner in this season when everything else from her this season was fantastic. So any other thoughts here?
I have a no. Andrew has a confessional question mark.
Oh, yeah, we should also mention earlier on, Andrew gets his intro package of him being a survivalist and knowing how to make fire, and here he loses a fire making competition to Danny.
Well, to be fair, Danny basically put in the cheat code where she just threw all the kindling on and just like blew up, which is actually not a bad plan. I mean,
oh yeah, I get that, but it's just so funny that Andrew's like only moment is him bragging about being able to make fire the fastest.
Yeah, we'll get a bit more from Andrew.
Yeah.
As he just seems confused about the entire game.
Yeah, I don't like Andrew, so we'll get to him in a little bit. All right, so Baden goes to Redemption Rock, and episode 15 is where basically we find out that Chelsea's been evacuated, and then we get to Emmett winning his third immunity in a row, technically fourth individual immunity overall. And this is where Hayley is going to get exposed, that basically what Danny tells George that she threw him under the bus, right? And so then Hayley is going to get unanimously voted out and sent to Redemption Rock. So
yeah. It's this is Emmett comes to George to confront him and ask him about being the mole. And George is trying to placate him, and it cuts to a confessional from George saying, "Of course I'm the leak, but I'm just going to deny it."
So good. So good. Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, it's something that George should have gotten called out on by the Brawns, and they just completely. The Brawns not doing something about George at this vote was such a misplay by them. So
I do like that this episode is, two of the absolute all-time greatest Australian Survivor players pitted against each other, and George does come out on top. I mean, George is completely in the wrong. He was the informant. The Brawn have every reason to turn on him, but George manages to keep everyone on side, whereas Hayley kind of blows up and doesn't go well for Hayley, but George wins this round, but I guess Hayley wins ultimately. So
yeah, well, and it's just funny because George also goes to Andrew and tells him that Hayley's trying to throw under the bus, which she does, but like I don't even know why Andrew is trusting anything that comes out of George's mouth, but whatever.
I did really like that from George. I did like how George went about kind of sowing seeds of doubt about who Hayley is as a player, and that she's kind of temperamental and that she'll just throw people under the bus if it'll help her. Which, I mean, there was certainly some truth to that. That's what she was doing, but I don't think it was for the reasons George was saying. I do think she was trying to help other players within her group, not just help herself. But George managed to spin it so that she was the villain when George in this situation was very much the villain.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hayley gets voted out, sent to Redemption Rock with Baden, and we have the battle back.
Whoa! Before that, Chelsea sadly is evacuated.
Okay, so this is where she gets evacuated. Okay, yeah.
She's out of the game. One more thing about Redemption Rock. That place looks fucking awesome. I would just love to go there and just camp.
It looks like
sounds great.
Great campsite.
There's a great quote from Hayley where she's like, "Should we just stay here?"
I don't blame her.
Yeah. So then we have this challenge where we get to see Hayley's performance as a challenge beast for the first time, really, and she beats Tour de France winner Baden, which is incredible. Like, she just does so well, and Baden is obviously going to credit her at the end of the game for doing this as well. So Any other thoughts on this? I will say, like, again, Baden got completely screwed at to get in this position of being one of the two to go home in this Redemption Rocks challenge, or the one to go home. But I think Baden was a fine player. I wouldn't mind seeing him back. I don't think he's going to be back, but I don't know. It just sucks how he went out of the game.
Yeah.
But
I just
think
like.
this was,
Sorry, go.
I think what's interesting about this episode as well is it's a complete different structure for the episode of what Survivor usually is. I remember I was watching it and I got to like halfway through the episode and it was like, we're a tribal council. I was like, oh, tribal council is in the middle of the episode and we're going to get to the whole Redemption Rock stuff at the end of that episode. So definitely a first for Australian Survivor. I don't know about the Redemption Islands episodes in the US, whether they had a similar structure, but I remember thinking that kind of stood out.
Yeah, that was basically what I was gonna say. I liked how they just like Hayley gets voted out, and then she's just like right back in, and they don't like keep it like to next episode. So I just like that was like a nice, nice and tight.
Yeah, from my memory, I thought it was going to be what we'll talk about with Blood versus Water next week, and I'm glad that it wasn't. And unfortunately, we're going to get that next week.
But don't get me going on that twist.
Yeah, so like
purgatory.
Yeah, it's just like this was so nicely structured, though, as you said, Matt. So, yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, and so now we're gonna get Hayley's back in the game. Baden is the first member of the jury. So, any other thoughts before we get to episode 16?
Nope.
All right, episode 16. This is where at this point now Hayley knows she needs to fade back in, and just kind of follow orders a little bit here. And this is where we are going to get the awesome vote out of where George is going to do the 4 horsemen vote in Survivor Fiji, where they target the third person that is least likely to get an idol played for them. And this is where Gerald gets blindsided. And and this is where the Brawns completely turn on each other, where Danny's targeting Emmett and Emmett goes for Danny in response. So any thoughts on how this plays out?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes. I love the way George goes about this vote.
Yeah.
And he mentions in Heroes versus Villains that tribal council that what did I do when Hayley came back into the game? I worked with her straight away.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of George's best decisions in this game, especially like obviously Hayley goes on to win, which George wouldn't know at this point, but working with someone that went out in that fashion and is now in such a weakened state. I think getting a good relationship with Hayley at that point was a really good call from George. And that this is the point where he officially flips back to the Brains. He was being an informant for them, but he was still kind of good with the Brawn. This is where he really draws that line in the sand. Taking out Gerald is such a smart move, especially because you have Danny gunning for Emmett, Emmett gunning for Danny. So if one of them goes, then the rest of that group can kind of regroup from that, but keeping both of them in that are gunning for each other, that dynamic is going to continue, and you can continue to take advantage of that. So taking out a third like Gerald, who's really done nothing wrong, I think is a really smart move by George.
Yeah, this is a fantastic move. This is one of my favorite moves of the season. Spoiler alert for that. But it just is so well executed, and poor Gerald, but just King George strikes a blow.
Yeah. Michael basically just said everything that I was going to say again, so I'm going to start cutting you off. This was a great move by George. I originally thought that Hayley coming back in would hurt George's game, but then he's just able to seamlessly go. So maybe Hayley getting voted out actually kind of helped him, because it may have told Hayley, George can get you out if he wants to, so let's work together instead of being opposed. But yeah, the only other notes on this episode I have is this is the KFC reward. Yeah. And here are some of the quotes I wrote down. This one's from Danny. If I could plan my wedding, it would be exactly like that. Eating KFC in the Outback. Okay, bold choice. And then also Danny says all 5 of the players should make a new alliance. Danny says, how is that? And then Gerald goes, I like alliances. It's like, what else are you supposed to say? No, I'm not going to do that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and Flick plays Kez's idol for Emmett. So,
And then for
Danny
the
really does.
sorry.
You go. Danny really does love a challenge alliance. You mentioned that she does it there. She does this multiple times where she goes on a challenge, and it's just like, hey, these people are in a challenge together. Let's a reward together. Sorry, let's be an alliance, and it never really works for her.
Well, yeah. So it's basically like the exact opposite of 2017 when Luke went on all those reward challenges, and like that was who was voting at that tribal. So it's just like the exact opposite for Danny.
Yeah. And just, as I said, like Brawn just misplay everything here.
The only other thing I was going to say, this immunity challenge, they use their legs to hold up a disc, which is a very common Australian challenge, which I kind of hope that they cancel soon. It's getting kind of boring. But when I first read this in my notes, I thought it said use legs to hold up a dick. So I was like, wait, what? What the fuck is going on here? So.
Oh my God. All right. So Andrew won that challenge. He wins a couple here in a row. But all right, episode 17. This episode is great as well. This is where 5 people win the challenge. What were you gonna say, Michael?
One last thing before we move on from 16, we missed the amazing moment where George licks Danny's prison pocket, as I put it.
Yeah, it tastes like dirt and chicken.
God, that was. I remember watching that and I'm just like, what the heck? I can't.
He loves KFC.
One of my other notes was find someone who looks at you the way that George looks at KFC.
That's right.
All right. All right, George licking pockets. Moving on from so episode 17. So the George's secret idol episode, where he gets the key to open up the secret idol at tribal council, which is a really fun twist. And this is where Andrew is going to win another immunity, but first 5 to finish also are all safe. And this is a brutal challenge where they have to run back and forth up and down a hill. And this challenge I would be dead by the end of it.
Yeah, especially in the outback. So it's like over 100 degrees for us, Jake. I don't know what that in Celsius, but this would fucking suck. But I did like the vertical puzzle that they actually had to do. It really seemed like a puzzle like that. So
yeah, it was a good challenge, brutal challenge, but so George has the key. So basically it's what, Cara, Laura, I can't remember the other 2 people.
Danny, Laura, Cara, and Way are the ones who were eligible. But going with George finding the key, I wrote down this quote: I really do have to give more money to that Macedonian church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. So George wants to find the secret idol and play it for Cara. And so we get to the tribal, and I just love and Laura becomes the target because George knows out of the other 3 he can't work with Laura anymore. So he opens up I love opening the lock at the tribal and just pulling the idol out. And Cara's safe, and with 1 vote, Laura is taken out of the game. So any thoughts on this?
I do like when all the votes are being read for Cara. She goes, "Is with a C, guys, for next time."
Yes, because someone put K in.
Yeah.
Before the vote, this is also the episode where we learn about Flick's mom and that she passes away in this episode. So that's the other big story point from this. Which it's kind of it's so heartbreaking that we've had 2 seasons in a row now that we've discussed the show where someone's mother's passed away during the season.
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning that, Michael, because I forgot that had happened, and I do remember now. So Flick's mom passing away is definitely heartbreaking. It factors into her coming into Heroes versus Villains as well, because that's her first, what she says in Heroes versus Villains, coming in and why she's a hero, and it makes perfect sense. It's definitely heartbreaking, and makes total sense for Flick's return later.
Yeah, and I like how JLP even goes up to her, gives her a hug. JLP, that's a nice guy.
That kind of got me in the I had a little lump.
Well,
in the throat.
I got a lump with this quote from Flick. I'm actually getting a little choked up trying to read it, where she says, "I feel like I said goodbye to my mom years ago." It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it sucks, and I do like Flick, and uh, you know, I feel like this was the moment where her character really elevated in this season. I mean,
Yeah.
she's a late game character here, but it makes sense to make her more relevant from this episode onward.
Yeah. Well, to use her job as a big wave surfer, you don't want
Yes.
to get on that wave too early. So this is like the perfect time coming in, like partway through, to ride that wave to the end.
Yep, for sure.
See how
Now
I did that, guys? See how I did that? That was fucking awesome, right?
Now I want to see Flick and Ross play together.
Oh boy.
That would be fun. Just a couple more things I want to say. I have two quotes from Danny. I don't know why, but it's from the beginning of the episode. I was chasing after the bus. Don't leave me behind. We'll come back for you next time. I just like that, how she was left out of the boat. And then I actually like this one. If they are firing stray bullets everywhere, one might actually hit, which is like a nice little, like you can fire stray bullets all you want, but one's going to hit somebody once.
Yeah.
I have one note on this hand that really made me laugh was when JLP opens the urn to get the votes, and his little acting when he sees the idol inside.
Oh.
It's like, it's in there. And he does this funny little like, what's this?
Oh, so good. All right. So any other thoughts on Laura? Are we ready to hit the Emmett episode?
I'll just say this about Laura for next episode when she comes in for jury.
Yes.
She cleans up really well.
Yes, absolutely.
That wasn't my.
Oh.
I thought you took my note on Laura, which mine was that she's a fantastic juror.
Yeah.
She's kind of got the Eliza like
Reaction.
She's very reactive, reaction heavy. Yeah, like she's great on the jury. I really, really liked Laura. She wasn't someone I particularly remembered all that well when I thought about the season, but I thought she was really solid. And I liked the way she played, and I'm glad she made jury.
Yeah. I think the reason that she doesn't remember too fondly is just because she was with Rachel and Georgia, which are just kind of like two people who are just like and then like so she was like always on the outs, but she was a good solid player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved her on the jury as well. I think she was also one of the jurors that was like the most open going into like the final tribals. So like I think she loves the game. I think she understands it. And so I wouldn't mind seeing Laura back again, but I think she's also been forgotten. So sadly. All right. Episode 18. This is the Emmett boot episode. And so this is I'm gonna just mention the voting confessional. Obviously, George's voting confessional. Emmett, if my only talent was standing there and looking pretty, I'd be bitter as well. Oh God, that's what sums up this episode. But yes, this is where does Andrew win immunity again, or is this Hayley's first one?
This is Hayley's, because this is the challenge where they have to stand on pegs, which I feel like is very heavily weighted to the women. Because there's a lot of weight on the men, like going down. But Hayley wins this one, and this is where George like steps off after like 4 minutes.
Yeah,
and then everybody's Flick is like, is he just playing mind games with us?
Yeah. This is where the start, unfortunately, of people hating on George for bailing out of challenges. Sadly, so.
See, I think it's actually a really smart move from George here. Like he's not going to win it.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know, but I think George's plan here is if he goes and sits down on the bench first, he gets to have these conversations as people come and join him on the bench, and we see that where he's who's the first one that comes
Hayley.
off?
No, sorry, not Hayley. My bad.
Danny.
Danny. Okay. There's a challenge earlier.
No. It's during the merge when they get the food.
Yes.
George and Hayley are the first ones to sit down. So
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I do think that's something George does, where he uses that time when people are killing themselves in these challenges to have a bit of a strategy talk with somebody on the bench.
Yeah. George is a master of that, and I mean, like, even we're gonna see in Heroes versus Villains where he talks to people after challenges as well. So like, he's very good at that. All right.
This is also the Cara award.
This is also the Cara award. Okay. So
Danny D-Max.
yeah, Danny wins the D-Max. So good on Danny for being part of the car curse. So that only one
We
player
have,
is broken in Survivor South Africa. So
yeah.
but any other thoughts on this episode and Emmett's boot episode?
We on the car challenge, I do have a GLP note, which was the wind is a handbrake in this challenge, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, on Emmett again, really interesting character, plant-based Superman. Like it's just, I think he would be interesting on a return as well. But he's as Eden said, I mean, he's a really good physical challenge competitor. But yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see Emmett again. I'm okay if we don't. But
I'm fine. He's just like a charisma vacuum to me. He's just kind of like, I don't really like him.
yeah, well, I mean, I don't like the way that he definitely was not open going into Final Tribal. But
Yeah, he's like this is for Michael. He's like Austin Theory, where I just want to punch him in the face. Like he seems like a nice guy, but I just want to punch him in the face.
Yeah, I did appreciate him more this time. I think he was a better player than I remembered him being. I do think he does have more to him than just the physical. Like he did have some good strategy to him, but yeah, he massively misplayed this final episode here for himself, where he tries to bring in Hayley to a majority where that it doesn't advantage her whatsoever. Because this is also the episode where George sneaks up on Hayley and Way in the grass and listens to their conversation and hears that they're actually swaying towards him. So if it wasn't for Emmett kind of trying to pull Hayley into something that didn't make sense for her, like maybe Emmett could have got through this one.
right, because he literally call Hayley number 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never, it's like the Alex Bell and Rob Cesternino and Amazon literally never tell someone that they're like last in your alliance.
Yeah.
So all right, bye Emmett. All right, so with plant-based Superman gone, we move into episode 19, and this is goodbye to one of our duds of the season. We get Andrew going goodbye. And this is where the urn twist comes into play for the first time, which is one of the worst twists in Australian Survivor.
Yeah, this sucks just like Andrew. It's like I'm just glad he picked the wrong urn.
Yeah.
I did not want to see more.
No. He gave nothing to the season for me, and just like the fact that he was like so against George, but then was still making moves that didn't benefit him in any way. So it's just
well, every Australian season has to have a NPC make it deep. So I guess this was just the season version.
Yeah.
I do have one positive note on Andrew in this final episode for him, where I thought it was funny when he tries to talk to George, and George says, "The girls haven't confirmed the plan with me yet." And Andrew says, "Yes, they have. It's me," and kind of slaps him on the shoulder as he walks away. I was like, fair play. Like, I respect that.
Yeah. And then George said, "Tonight I can get rid of the only male physical threat to my game, Andrew." And then I was thinking, well, that's because he's the only male left in the game. So of course.
That's crazy to me again, that we're down to so like it's this gender imbalance. Obviously, like the only other seasons we've seen this are like One World and Vanuatu, which were the men versus women seasons, where there's one man left by like final 6 or 7. So
and this is where Danny starts really trying to push for a female alliance, which doesn't really make sense when there's only 2 men left in the game. Like you're only going to get yourself through 2 votes, and then what do you do? It's like it makes sense if, I don't know, there was like 6 women left and 4 men left, that you could kind of get yourself further through the game. But at this point, the gender imbalance is kind of pointless, and it's not going to be a deciding factor in anyone's decision, I don't think.
Right. All right. Anything else to say before I move on to the time the urn actually, unfortunately, works?
Bye, Andrew.
Yeah, bye, Andrew.
I mean, so getting into it, I don't mean to anything against Flick, but I just hate the twist. But yeah, so this is where Flick gets saved by it, and I think it really impacts George's game negatively in this case because at this point, this is where Way also wins immunity, by the way, but like uh Flick is literally, if she goes home here, it very positively impacts George's game in the end, and then he can go to the end with Cara and probably beat Cara in the end. But because of this, Flick ends up surviving, finding an idol, and she basically is able to win one of the last couple challenges and prevent herself from going home, and it just sets George up to basically not be able to go to the end with someone who he can easily beat. So um, I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way with that. So because I think George would have probably won the season if not for this twist here.
Yeah. And I think you end up with a final four that only George is the only player that hasn't been voted out of the game at some point, which is just so unfair on George. Like, if the criteria is to outwit, outplay, outlast, I feel like George is the only one that can accurately say that he did that at that point. And yeah, there's too many non-limbs, and for all those non-limb players to make it right to the end game, it does kind of suck for George. And yeah, these non-limbs really didn't help him.
Right. And I do love Hayley. Like, I still think she's an amazing player. It just an unfortunate circumstance of what happened in the game. So with these twists and the non-limbs. So all right. Anything else to say on episode 20 besides the stupid urn twist?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
I do like that George wears a skirt to tribal council and becomes one of the girls. I
didn't even notice that. Oh, and he's also carrying the big like firewood. He's like, I'm the alpha male, and
yeah.
All right, so we get to episode 21, and this is where Danny finally gets her comeuppance in the game, and this is where Flick is able to find the idol. She's gonna use it at the final five, correct? But she gets it here, and this is where they split the votes between Flick and Danny, and they're able to get Danny out of the game. Any other thoughts on episode 21?
No,
this is where Danny tries yet another reward alliance.
With Flick and Hayley.
And I did make a note that Hayley plays the middle very well. I think that's the kind of the pinnacle of Hayley's game, that she really manages all sides of the game in a way that makes sense. And I feel sometimes players that play the middle get focused on, like, we need to get them out for that reason, whereas Hayley's just very good at riding that line where she's getting all the information but she's not being targeted for it.
Yep. I mean, I'm trying to remember what I was. Oh, this is where Way wins immunity. Actually, I believe is this final six round. Not, I got confused with the other final six round because of the urns.
Yeah, because there's so many.
Yeah. So this is where Way wins the puzzle. So, all right. So anything else to say on Danny? I mean, again, I think she really put herself in this position to where she was never going to actually be in control the rest of the game after she took out Simon as soon as she did. So I just think Danny misused her talents as a player.
I do think Flick misplays this tribal council terribly. She's trying to get George out.
Yeah.
And she publicly, at tribal council, lowers his threat level, where she calls him out on sucking at the challenges, and she's coming at him like in regards to why would the jury want to vote for him, and that he's not playing this part of the game. And it's like, if you're hoping to get these people to join you to vote out George, why would you lower his threat level? Maybe we can keep George, maybe we can beat George. It made no sense. If you're going to do that, you need to hype up his game. But he just does the complete opposite.
Right. All right, so then episode 22, another great episode. This is where George ends up getting Way blindsided to save himself, and this is where Flick plays her idol, and so George is able to get him and Cara to both vote Way in order to save himself from going home. So, thoughts on this episode and how well George played this round here to save himself from going home?
Well, I'll say the quote I have for this episode is from Way. The jury is going to respect George's strategic gameplay. Well, that did not age well.
Badly.
But yeah, this is a great move by George. Like this is probably his final. Or no, this isn't his final great move. This is like another feather in his cap. Because like he's just crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this might be my favorite move from George, because I think for him to read Flick having the idol and manage to come up with that plan to avoid himself getting the votes was really well played. I also think we talked about how George walked around with his idol, Hayley showed her idol off. I actually think this was a really good opportunity for Flick to walk around the camp in her idol, because I think that would have caused the two duos to actually break rather than this. George manages to shift Flick's plans and get the target off himself. But I think for Flick, who knows that she's coming back to camp this episode, for her to break that alliance up before Tribal Council would have been way better off for her than just letting the votes play out however they play out.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Is this also the episode, the immunity, where George doesn't want to jump off to get the ball or whatever it was, jump off the platform?
Possibly, I don't know.
No, this is the one where George goes back to help Way.
Oh, yes. Yes, that was a good moment too.
That was very sweet.
I'm sad that didn't get him Way's vote.
What more does George have to do to get Way's vote?
I know, really. It's like, goddamn.
Yeah, he apparently saves her multiple times, helps her out, and she still doesn't give him the respect. All right, so yeah, Way goes out, which is just an awesome move, as we've said. I think George deserves so much credit for this. So, but any other thoughts on this episode?
Oh.
All right, episode 23. This is the final four episode. I will say this is probably another one of Hayley's best moves, is getting Cara and George to turn on each other. Which, I mean, George logically, I think, was thinking this through anyway, but like, as I said in the chat, I think it's unfortunate because I can see why George would need Hayley to stop Flick from winning the immunity and make it to the end, because she beats them both because of all the bronze on the jury. I think it makes perfect sense for George to keep Hayley. But like, I wish, like, from a strategic perspective, and like, he should probably try to take Cara at the end, but it's just there's no way that they can beat Flick otherwise. So
yeah, I think it's kind of one of those situations, kind of similar to Luke in Champions vs Contenders 2, where there's this player that you have to get out, and I don't think Flick played a particularly great game, but I just think when you look at the jury and all of her allies are there, and also the emotional journey that she's been on, it's one of those things where that trumps gameplay, and that will be what gets the jury's votes. So Flick was someone that, if anyone wanted to win, they had to take her out. So I do understand George's reasoning for taking Cara out here, though. But considering he loses to Hayley anyway, maybe he just should have tried his luck. Maybe Cara would have been good at the challenge, the final challenge.
I doubt it, but
I doubt it, but
but yeah, I mean, again, a great move by Hayley, also considering Flick tries to turn on Hayley at this round, because Flick knows that Hayley is so good at these types of challenges that she needs to knock Hayley out. So I think Flick does try to make an optimal move for herself. So
yeah, it's absolutely the right move for Flick, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, goodbye Cara.
Yeah, this is also the episode where they think that there's going to be a tie. So Cara teaches George how to make fire, but Cara can't start the fire.
Oh no. Well, I mean, it is interesting that it's a 2-1-1 boat out of the final four too.
I always like a 2-1-1 boat.
It's way more
fun. It's way more fun.
Yeah. All right. the finale of Brains versus Brawn. So we have our final three of George, Flick, and Hayley, all three of which are going to return as well, which is pretty cool. I mean, I guess you could consider Cara also returning.
Yeah, she returned in Heroes vs. Villains as well.
So yeah, so final four of all returnees. That's funny, in some way. But yeah, so this final three, arguably the most iconic final three up to this point. And so you get one of the most brutal final immunity challenges. I think we talked about this in our chat, but just like you're standing on these little spikes with spikes above you and trying to and the spikes lower every so often. This is very, very brutal. I don't think I feel like I could do decent at endurance comps, but I think I'd be in George's position at this one. Just being in a torture position does not sound fun, and I don't think I could last on this for as long as like Hayley and Flick did.
Yeah, my note for this challenge is fuck this immunity challenge.
Yeah.
This sucks. But they have to earn it. So mad props on Hayley. I need to become a pain researcher or something because I don't know how she did that.
Yeah, this is very, very cool. I mean, she talks about how she was able to like channel all her research into pain to be able to last and win this challenge. So yeah, and so then you get the loved ones as well, we should mention, of course.
Yeah, that was emotional for Flicks.
Yes.
Just her partner and best friend coming.
Yes, yeah. This was really good for all three of them, and and the funniest moment is that George's mom is like, how could I think it's ridiculous that anybody could last out here for 6 hours, and Hayley's boyfriend is just like, I know Hayley could.
Yeah.
I
don't think anyone was beating Hayley. I don't.
No.
I was gonna say I don't think anyone was beating Hayley in that challenge.
Yeah,
she would have been up there all night.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is in George's book, he mentions this. His mother was a terrible person to have out there because she kept saying, well, you've been up there for an hour, George. You can come down now. So that was why he wanted Cara back for Heroes vs. Villains, because she would be like, come on, George, do it. Come on.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only thing missing was George's dog, Douglas.
Yeah. But we did get to see George's sister, Pamela, who he ran the Amazing Race with.
Yes. So that was cool. So yeah, Hayley ends up beating Flick out and votes Flick out of the game, which clearly was the right decision.
There's no choice.
Yeah. So I mean, any thoughts on Flick 1.0 here? I mean, I think Flick says it herself that her social game was pretty good. She had friends on the jury and with Brawn. So I think her social game was good. I think she definitely had several strategic misplays. And I mean, kudos to her though that she did try to get Hayley out, which was the right move for her. So at least she kind of wisened up by the end, and her story obviously took off from the episode where her mom died onward. So I'm glad she did return. She definitely deserved to make a return. And I think from when she comes back in Heroes vs. Villains, she has a little bit more of an understanding of the game clearly than she did going into her first season. Here. Any other thoughts?
I don't usually rate Flick as a player, but I think it's fitting that she was the final Brawn standing. I think she was she was a very solid player in that Brawn tribe that only really looked at one aspect of the game, whereas I think there was a bit more to her than that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll agree. I mean, I think she definitely was one of the better players on the Brawn tribe, at least too. All right, the final tribal council of this season, George versus Hayley. I would argue the best final tribal council in Australian Survivor history. And just it was, they both gave a good performance, I think. I mean, George, I think, was stuck in politician mode and just didn't know how to switch out for some people. But aside from dodging a couple questions for people that he probably wasn't getting anyway, but I think he did pretty well. He owned his game, which not everybody can do or has done. And I think that's what he needed to do. And I don't fault him for saying that he had no regrets of the game he played, because we've also seen people apologize for playing a snaky game and getting, like, I would say Boston Robin All-Stars should have. I think he realized that he should have like told people to kiss his ass instead of like trying to apologize for doing that. And like I think George definitely had the right approach for that. It's just I think Hayley just gave an incredible performance here herself and also owned her game and said everything she needed to say to get the win here.
I think George's responses seemed very insincere from the juries. He would often, whenever he was asked a question, he would say, "Thank you very much for that question. I really appreciate the thought that you've put into it." And it was all very like political and like, yeah, you don't need to add that at the beginning of your answer. Like, just answer their question.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys basically covered it all. The only thing I gotta say about this jury is fuck Danny for being like, well, I was a challenge beast. Well, one, you weren't. And then she's just using that to rag on George. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I don't, again, as someone in a similar position to George where I wouldn't do well at a lot of the challenges, I just feel bad because I feel like I'd get grilled for that point too. So
yeah, as someone who doesn't put any stock in the physical side of the game either, it's like it sucks that that's what it came down to for a lot of people for George. And he played one of the greatest strategic games globally in Survivor. And I think he deserved more than 2 votes. I'm glad he got 2. But the only thing that makes it okay is that, like you say, it's not very often in Survivor where you get the 2 biggest players of the season in the final 2 together. And Hayley is a very worthy winner. And it was 2 of the absolute best against each other, and George just came up short.
Unfortunately, I would have loved George to also be a winner, and we'll talk about heroes versus villains. Unfortunately, no, but I don't know. Maybe someday, hopefully, we'll get a George win somehow. But otherwise, I mean, he's just going to be like the Rob Cesternino, the Malcolm, the Suri. That's just not. I mean, I guess Suri won Traitors, so that
and also snakes on the grass. So there's that.
Malcolm did win that. Yeah, that's true. So, but
so really, only Rob C sucks at winning things. Okay. but he won the podcasting game.
So. That's true. Yes. So, but yeah, unfortunately, some people just aren't. Some of the best are not necessarily going to just win the game. Unfortunately, so yeah. All right. So let's go over the categories here, and then we'll do our rankings. So favorite player, I mean, I'm gonna go with George. So
it's George.
Michael,
it's George. I do love Hayley too, but yeah, George might be my all-time. Oh no, I can't say that. I nearly just threw Harry away.
Wow. Well, as soon as you're not talking about him, you forget about him, huh?
Uh-oh.
But yeah, like George is in a Mount Rushmore of Survivor Australia for sure. He's just fantastic entertainment and a great player. And yeah, this was his season, and I'm amazed he got as far as he did. I didn't see it coming. But yeah, George is fantastic, player of the season.
Absolutely, and I think we'll be saying that in a couple seasons' time again. So, all right. Least favorite, I'm gonna go with Andrew. I think he's just a massive dud in the season. I think the one thing that the storyline was trying to set up for him is that he knew how to make fire, and he couldn't even accomplish that. So like, and just like again, going in as a juror that's never gonna vote for George, never gonna be open to that. Just rubbed me the wrong way as well. So yeah, Andrew's my least favorite of the season.
I'll go Benny, just because I did not like him. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was going to go. For a second, I thought we were going to have the same answer again. I'm going Andrew. I think, especially on the jury, he really wound me up when you just see him just rolling his eyes, and it's like, at least respect what George managed to do. You don't have to vote for him, but at least give him the time of day and listen to what he has to say. I don't think Andrew really brought anything to the show.
I don't think so either. All right. Favorite move. There's several moves that George made, and that does not mean seven. But I mean, I'm gonna go with the Gerald blindside just because I think it was so flawlessly executed to vote for like the third person that's never gonna get an idol played on them as we've seen in the past, and just like a 5-5-3-1 or 6-3-1 or whatever it was. Like it was just really well executed. So I'm gonna go with that.
Just to be different, I will say telling Hayley to play to vote for Kez to get that idol out of the game. Even though technically it didn't work because that idol still got to stay in the game for some fucking reason. But I'll say that just to be different.
Another well executed move for sure. Michael?
I think for me, it's the way boot. I think just especially like just the forethought on George's part to not take that risk, and his read was completely right, and especially how adamant Cara was that George was just being, overly cautious and she wasn't wanting to do it. It was absolutely the right move for George, and he goes out at that point if he doesn't do it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's get to our winner rankings to add Hayley to the list. The winners list, as it stands, is David, Pia, Jericho, Christy, and Shane Gold. For me, I have Hayley as number 2 as Matt's holding up. I think she's right below David. I think David is still obviously the most dominant, but I don't hold Hayley getting voted out that one round against her as much as other people do. I think people forget all the other fantastic moves she made in this season, and I'm a big fan of her game just as much as I am of George's. So I'm putting her at number 2 for me.
Yep. Same thing, although as I told you before, I do hold her getting voted out just a little bit, but it's not like a brutal thing. I'm not going.
Well, right.
Yeah, I'm more kind of on Matt's side of that, where I do think the way she went out, especially like she didn't just get voted out, it was a unanimous vote. She completely blew her game up and was voted out. But the vast majority of what she did throughout the season was fantastic, and I don't think you can rank her above David, who just completely dominated that season and had no flaws. So, but yeah, she's a fantastic winner. I do think you could maybe make an argument for Pia, but I do prefer Hayley, and I would put her at 2.
Okay. Yep, we're all in agreement on that. So Hayley is number 2, and we'll see how the rest of the winner rankings go. I think that it might start to get interesting from here on out, the next 3 seasons. All right, and then seasons ranked. So I figure we'll cover where it might fit in the Australian seasons and then slot it in with like our overall global season rankings. So seasons ranked for Australia, it is Champions versus Contenders 2 at number 1, 2017, season 2 at number 2, All-Stars at 3, season 1, 2016 at 4, and Champions versus Contenders 1 at last for Australia. Brains versus Brawn. Yeah, I would say it's better than All-Stars for me. It's better than the bottom 3. So I would say probably because of the twists that they knock it down below season 2 and Champions versus Contenders 2 for me. And that
I was hoping maybe we were gonna have like disagreements, but 3 was where I was at as well. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll put that in and then we can move to like where it would fit globally. So Brains versus Brawn. All right. So then we go to the global rankings. So if we're putting it behind season 2 and Champions vs. Contenders 2, so it's 2017 sits at number 25. So it's at least 26th. I think it's better than that for sure. How do you want to go about this?
I forgot there was such a big jump between where we put CVC 2 and where 2017 was. Yeah. Oh, see, that's so tricky because I definitely think it's above 25. But
so what's below 2017? Doesn't go directly to 2016?
Yeah, AU All-Stars and then 2016. So that's 3 seasons in a row for Australia.
It just sucks that Michael, you and I came in here when we did, because now all the Australian seasons are grouped together.
Yeah, we have no choice now but to squeeze it between those 2. It's the only option we have, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
because we can't rank it
Yeah.
above All Stars in the
Yeah,
Australian
we
ranking, and
can't
then
be like
rank it lower.
it's better than Second Chance or something. You know.
Yeah, yep. All right, so it's gonna be 26th, which might be a little low. I mean, at some point, maybe the three of us can like reorganize our rankings.
Yeah,
Although,
to fix the mistakes of Cameron and Kevin. Okay, sounds
yeah,
good.
exactly. All right, so with that, I think that's it for Brains versus Brawn.
Are we going to rank the final immunity challenges?
Oh, we can do that too. Yeah, I mean, I would say this one is number one for me. I mean, I think it's this one, and as you said, Matt, CVC 2, I think are the top two, and then like what?
I would go 2017 because it was at night, so it was probably colder. Then 2016, then All Stars, then Champions versus Contenders 1.
I'd agree with that, actually. Yeah, I think I don't think there's any argument for that. I do think 2016 in terms of like maybe a story perspective is slightly better than 2017, but in terms of brutality, I will agree with like the nighttime making it harder.
Yeah, especially because you can't see it coming.
Right. Any other?
Yeah, I can't remember them all off the top of my head, so I think I agree with that ranking. But I definitely think this was number one. This was absolutely brutal. And then CVC 2 was like this, but not on steroids.
Way worse. The only other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to compare the season to a movie. I actually do have two, because Sandra Bullock was brought up a bunch, so I wanted to pick a Sandra Bullock movie first. So I had to think about this. So I picked Speed because it's like fast paced. There's a bunch of NPCs in the background who don't really matter, and then you have two like legends being formed with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, who are like King George and Hayley. But then the other one I picked, which I think is more accurate, is Now You See Me. So when you watch it the first time, you don't really mind the twist. You don't think about it. But then when you go back, you look at the twist, you're like, what? This doesn't even make fucking sense. So that's where I would rank Brains versus Brawn as Now You See Me.
Interesting. Yeah, I used to love that Mark Ruffalo twist as well, but I'm sure if I rewatched,
and then if you ever think about it, you're like, wait, that makes no sense at all.
I'll have to rewatch the Now You See Me movies, especially since they're making a third one apparently. So
yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, so next week we're gonna try to sit through Blood versus Water, Australian Survivor Blood versus Water, season 7, and I will say at least we get to bring in Sandra and Nina, which is going to be fun. We get Jordy the Joker as well, and I do like Jordy. Mark and Sam make their returns, and
then we get Christy, which is like she's fun, but she's more fun on Talking Tribal. Like that's where all of her entertainment really comes from.
Oh, I mean, Chrissy's entertainment, I do love her thinking Sandra is Oprah, but we'll get to that.
And we get the return of the greatest player of all time,
Andy.
He's back. I'm sure. I guarantee you, he is going to dominate this season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
I mean, I'm maybe looking forward to a couple things to rewatch, but I don't know. I'll try to see if I get if it goes up slightly more, but like again, we'll talk about like all the duds in the cast next week. So
that is a season filled full of NPCs. It's like wow.
Yeah, most of the loved ones were literally there for their loved ones, or it just didn't work for me either. But at least we have some people to look forward to. Khan as well is great, as we mentioned in the chat. So I'm excited to talk about them, and so we just have to get through this, and then we can talk about what many people consider to be the two best seasons.
I just wanted to ask this question to you guys before we wrap up Brains versus Brawn. Is this the best Final Four, like in Australian Survivor, maybe even globally? Because I like all Final Four.
Ooh, that's an interesting one to ask.
Because I would have put it in Titans versus Rebels up there, but Raymond is just kind of like he's just kind of there.
Love Raymond though.
well, I love him, but it's just like he's just there. Cara was more of a factor through the entire season versus Raymond, so that's why.
Yeah, I guess I can agree. But I do love Ray, so I will still put Titans versus Rebels up there for me as well. But like, you compare this is a better Final Four than what Heroes versus Villains ends up being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
because Australia Survivor
maybe
usually. Oh, sorry.
maybe CVC 2, like Baden's the only one that's slightly
Yeah.
less
'cause
exciting, but I still quite liked Baden. But yeah, I think it's certainly up there.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Trying to think even in like Survivor South Africa, the Final Fours there.
Well, I mean, that'd be Return of the Outcast for me.
Oh yeah, that's a good Final Four. So
okay, I was just because I was thinking about when I was watching this, I was like, damn, I like all 4 of these players.
yeah. All right, well, we'll convene next week for Blood versus Water, and we will see you all next time on the Tribe of Nerds.